All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order. Welcome. We will start out with roll call. Denise, please call the roll.
Director Sani.
Present.
Director Leffel. Here. Director Sago.
Here.
Director Miller.
Here.
And Chair Garcia.
Here. Thank you, everyone. Director Leffel, can you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Our next item is item C, and Executive Director, can you tee that up for us?
I certainly can, Mr. Chairman. This is resolution 1816, and it establishes the authorities to allow the public and the board members to attend via Zoom, and the public to provide comment via Zoom in writing or in person. This is a change from the previous resolution wherein we asked for public comment only in person or in writing. This is reflective of current conditions regarding the pandemic and was at the request of the board. So this reverses a previous resolution, and it will be staff's recommendation that the resolution be adopted.
So, Director, would that mean that the public could once again ask questions via Zoom?
Yes, sir, it does.
Very good. And do we have any member of the public with us in the audience?
yes.
We do have one.
Okay, so I can't see that on my screen, so keep me posted if there's a hand or anything like that as we go forward. So is there any communications or announcements either from the public or any of our board members at this time?
Hi, Gary, I'll move that we adopt resolution number 1816.
Sorry, Director, thank you. Director Sani seconds. Denise, I'm sorry, go ahead, Director Sani.
Thank you, Chair Curcio. I just had one question, and I think we even kind of started the meeting. Could we have an update on the media upgrades that we did approve, I believe, 2 meetings ago? Just when will the room include that technology upgrade?
It is still a work in progress.
I've got a motion on the table, if you'll please wait.
Yeah, please, absolutely.
Sorry.
Sure.
I'll go ahead and second the motion. I just wanted discussion around it too.
Okay, and Denise, roll call vote. Sorry about that, folks.
Director Sani.
So does my question get answered at some point? Could the attorney clarify that?
I'm sorry, Director, I'm having a little problem hearing. Could you repeat your question?
Could Attorney Huber, can I ask my question about this item?
Sure.
Go ahead, Director Sani.
So I'm just wondering what, I understand, technology and everything is difficult to procure. I'm just wondering if we have an ETA on when that will be completed.
No ETA. We know that a good portion of the system is already installed. We're just awaiting the balance of the system, and that's still caught up in supply chain issues.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I understand supply chain issues all too well. Chair Kersey and I can probably vouch for being on Zoom. It's a little difficult sometimes to hear, so that's part of my interest. All right, thank you for letting me ask my question. And Denise, did you want it back, or who wants it back?
Yeah, Denise, roll call vote, please.
Director Sani.
Yes.
Director Leffel.
Yes.
Director Sago.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Chair Garcia.
Yes. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Now, I'm sorry, I got out of order there. Please, first, let's start with board members. Any of the board members have any communications or announcements to make this morning? Seeing none, does any member of the public have any communication they'd like to make?
Yes.
Okay.
He's coming to the microphone, Gary.
Okay.
Excuse me. Good morning, board members and staff. It's nice to be here with you again. I'm here on an agenda item. My name is Howard Fossler, but I would like to talk to you first for a moment about as a citizen of New Monterey and give you an update on the traffic noise issue out there. It's greatly improved since I first started coming over here and talking with folks. It's certainly very, very livable now. There are only two things that I wanted to call to your attention. Two flights consistently are miscreants and fly over daily, almost daily. One to Dallas and one to Phoenix. So there's some way we could get to those folks and let them know that we really would appreciate it if they followed the procedure that's set up by the airport. It would be a big improvement. It would make things perfect in New Monterey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, staff does have one comment. I will present to the incoming chair a certificate from Defense Language Institute. It's a certificate of appreciation for all of the hard work that staff did to organize and host the military lounge during the holidays, which went smashingly well. And we had over 500 people during that period. And the certificate is very, very well presented, and I'll provide that to the incoming chair for his review. This is it.
thank you, Executive Director.
Mr. Chairman, there was something I forgot as a board member to make a comment. Can I do that now?
We are gonna right now go to public comments on non-agendized items.
Okay,
Go ahead.
we just did that.
So did you have another comment from the public?
No, that was the last one.
Okay,
Mrs. Sabo, there was something I wanted to comment on. I tried to do it. Can I still do it?
okay. Then Scott, can we move on?
Yeah, you're welcome to move on. If you want to take a comment from Director Sabo, that's fine too, either way.
I'm sorry, I'm really struggling.
Can you hear me?
Now I can, yes.
Oh, sorry, I guess I had my mic off. There was a comment I wanted to make, and I forgot to do it at the time.
Certainly. Go ahead, Director.
Yeah, for the benefit of the public that might be viewing this or our public in attendance, what's the status of cancellations, potential cancellations because of this 5G network business at Monterey? I know the answer, but I thought I'd bounce it to you because it does affect airline operations elsewhere, probably not here.
Yeah, it has the potential to affect airline operations, as you know. The media's done a pretty good job of following that. To date, we've heard no impact locally. We don't anticipate impact locally at this point. We're watching it closely.
Okay, if I can make a comment on this, having been a pilot that flew those with that radio radar altimeter business there, it's very critical to approaches where the airplane lands itself. We can't do that here. So we're not going to be affected by cancellations inbound to Monterey, and I think that's appropriate. San Francisco might be another story. So I just thought I would share it with the public. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Director Sabo. Any other comments from board members? Seeing none, we're going to go to item F. First off, I would just like to make a few very brief comments before I pass the gavel. I want to thank each and every board member for the past year that has helped us so much in getting us through some pretty difficult situations due to the pandemic, due to scheduling of meetings, et cetera. I think that all in all, I just want to thank each of you board members for your cooperation and all the help we received in the past year. It's really, really appreciated. And with that, it gives me great honor and pleasure to pass the gavel to our next chairman of the board, and that is Director Carl Miller. Carl, it's all yours.
Thank you, Gary. That comment before you start. I think you did a nice job, Gary, as chairman. It ain't an easy job, but you did a good job. Mrs. Sabo.
Thank you, Director Sabo. I appreciate that.
Director Leffel, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
I just, I'll echo what Director Sabo said, and Gary, it was a difficult year because sometimes we were in person, sometimes we weren't, but things got changed around quite a bit, and I certainly appreciate your flexibility in it, because it wasn't easy on anybody, staff or board members or public. So anyway, thank you, and now you can go back to your chair down the line and rest.
Thank you, Director. I appreciate that.
Director Sani, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
I think, as I'll echo what everybody else has said, I think even staff is included in that too, just the flexibility we've all had to have. And the financial state of the airport where it's at amidst this has really been a positive thing overall too. So Chair, I've enjoyed working with you and enjoyed this year, and enjoy a little quieter and less work maybe next year.
Thank you, Director.
Director Miller.
Thank you, Director.
Well, Chair Curcio, you certainly had a busy year. You were, we were sued. We were charged with deforesting. You got a lot of hate mail. You had a lot of issues come up. Now, in the past, normally we give you like a certificate, or in rare cases, maybe a plaque, but all those things didn't seem to warrant the super job that you did, almost like a superhero. So I thought I would give you what all superheroes need, is a cape. And it says Special District Superhero. So we will fly this over to you somehow. But thank you for your work last year. It was greatly appreciated. And we have many things that we're still continuing to do. So thank you, former Chair Curcio.
Thank you, Director Miller.
Okay, selection of the chair pro tem. This has always been at the discretion of the chair, but we do try to follow some order. It's been difficult because we've been at large. Now that we are sub-district, I think that gives us an opportunity to have a more formalized order. Maybe that's something we can look at in the future. But I would like to nominate Director Sani to be vice chair or chair pro tem.
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Director Leffel, beat out the rest of you. So we'll just do a voice call. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Passes unanimously. Thank you, and welcome Vice Chair Swanee. Okay, appointment of committees. So we'll just go down the list. Budget and Finance, I'd like to nominate Directors Sabo and Leffel. Air Service and Marketing, Directors Curcio and Miller. Airport Property Development and Lease, Directors Sani and Curcio. Ad hoc local jurisdictions will be Directors Leffel and Miller. LAFCO formation is Director Leffel. In the past, we had an alternate there, but this is really one where the person has to run for election, and you have an alternate pre-selected, correct?
Well, there could be an alternate case on, yeah, there's an
alternate.
My alternate is Craig Stevens from Soledad Healthcare. But our airport district can have an alternate in case I'm not there, that they can't be on the dais, they cannot speak, but
they're there
they can report back to all of you.
Okay, that person was Director Swanee, Sani last year, so we'll do the same. Regional Taxi Authority, Director Curcio and Sani as the alternate. Director, Transportation Agency for Monterey County would be Director Sabo and Curcio. Director, Special District Association Liaison will be Director Leffel and Miller as an alternate. And then AMDAG would be Director Sani and Director Sabo as an alternate. We don't have water listed. We had a request from the water board.
Yeah, that is simply that the chair appointment does not require a board action.
Okay. We'll just continue with what we had before with those.
I'll let them know.
So those are my nominations. We need a second or discussion. I can open it. Let's open it up to members of the public if they want to comment at this point. Does any board member have a comment? Yes.
I, Sabo, in the past on the MDA, you've been attending, Mike, as that, is that something that you choose to relinquish now from your position on the MDA?
There was a request that be a board member, and that request.
Oh, okay,
I am happy to step aside.
okay. No, well, I just, you have an overview of what's going on here at the airport. Yeah, it's a MDA, kind of an MDA thing. So I just want to make sure that there wasn't an oversight.
You know, I serve at the pleasure of the board, and the board chooses to take on that role on having stuff.
Okay.
Thank you for your work on that, board. So I need a second if there's no other comments.
Second.
So we have a second by Director Leffel. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Passes unanimously.
I did have my hand up. I'm sorry I'm in favor of it. I just wanted to ask that we have a meeting cadence document with when these meetings are and who's in attendance. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, we can get those together. I mean, most of the meetings are picked out by the committee. If you're talking about the other liaison positions, we will notify those boards who our representative are, and they usually get you on their email list. It may take some effort on somebody's part to make sure that they're getting the emails and they know when these things are.
It's a bigger, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. We were modifying the agenda. We did
Again, at the pleasure of the board, we have tentatively scheduled a closed session, a Zoom meeting with legal counsel that was previously identified agenda item, which would be item M1. We'd like to do that at 9:30. That's
M1 was a closed session.
M1 is closed session.
Yeah. Well, we do have a few minutes before 9:30. Mr. Foster, you are here for to speak on the redistricting efforts.
Oh, yes, I'm just here to observe,
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
I don't know if we want to start that now. How long do you estimate that would take?
Mr. Johnson does not appear to be on the scene yet. So it would be inappropriate to begin that without.
Yeah. I think we've told him that we were going to be a little bit late on that. So when do we?
We did. In fact, he's got an estimated time. I estimated approximately 10:15 or 10:30 for that item to be discussed with him present. So I suspect he's going to join about that time.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
If we go into closed session now, will we do all of our closed session agenda items before we reconvene to open session, or just one? one thing.
We will do just one thing,
Okay.
otherwise the timeline doesn't work out.
Okay.
So I really don't see any need to move past presentation number one.
You've got-
What we could do,
Director Curcio has a question, he's had it up. I don't know if we can have somebody in the room monitor the Zoom screen, because we're not getting our hands up that are attending virtually.
Yeah, Director Miller, I was saying we do have time. We could do the approval of the consent agenda.
that is a very good suggestion. Yes, let's do that. I bypassed that one. Thank you for that catch. So the consent agenda are items that are routine and come with the staff recommendation for approval. Any member of the public or member of the board can remove an item from consent agenda. Does any member of the board or public want to remove an item? And if not, can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So
So-
moved.
Second.
You do have a.
Director
hand raised.
Sani has her hand up. Director Miller?
Okay, I don't see that, but go ahead, Director Sani.
Yeah, I actually have quite a bit on the consent agenda. Number 1 and number 5, I believe we have the same finance meeting. We have the December 13th, is it? But we don't have the January 11th meeting minutes. And I'm sorry because my packet gets mixed up as I review things. Yeah, my packet has the December 15th meeting minutes twice. Anybody else run into that?
This is Director Sabo. I saw the same thing. I forgot to mention.
So I would suggest as one that would like to review both of those, and I had updates, but I can't even look at the 11th, that we table that till the next meeting.
That would be my recommendation. So we remove item number 5 from the consent agenda, and that would be tabled until the February meeting.
I have a question. Is that, Mr. Chairman, is that just a clerical error or has it not been prepared? No, it is a clerical error and been prepared for you, approved for insertion. Just apparently got picked up.
Okay, well, good catch. Anything else?
I'll amend my motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6.
I have others.
Okay, go ahead.
The regular meeting, number 2, I have an update to that, and I gotta find my page. So this is the December 15th board meeting.
Okay, so we will pull that. Anything else?
And I would like, yeah, I wanted to discuss the number 4, the air service carrier, and also number 6, the airport property development. I had clarified questions on both of those notes.
So Director Sani, are you okay if I amend my motion to approve items 1 and 3?
It really broke up there. I go ahead. Can you say it again? It was real fuzzy.
Are you okay if I approve, if I amend my motion to approve items 1 and 3, Director Sani?
Who did the second?
I did,
Okay.
and I'm okay with 1 and 3.
Is Director Sani, is there anything else?
Gary, can you hear? I can.
They're all cutting in and out.
Yeah, we're having your.
I did hear a motion in a second to do 2 of the items, I believe.
Yes.
1 and 3.
I can't hear.
So we have okay, we have a first and a second on approving items 1 and 3. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody?
I'll abstain.
Okay, Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I might interrupt for just a minute.
okay, let's move to the, yes. Okay. It's time to break. When we come back at about 10:15, 10:30. Hopefully you can make it back. I'm sorry, but we have lawyers that charge a lot of money and their availability will only get to 9:30.
Chair Miller,
But that will be the first item that we'll talk about
Chair Miller, we cannot hear you, and District Attorney Huber wanted to say something.
when we come back. I don't know if it's, we cannot hear, maybe you cannot hear. Director Curcio, can you hear me?
I can there, but it's breaking up very badly on everybody. It's like, bad imitation, but
Okay.
I think there was a song like that in the 60s.
now that was clear.
Welcome to Zoom. We will go ahead and break now. We will re-adjourn approximately 10:15 to 10:30. Hopefully you can join us.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Scott, did you text us the other number?
This Zoom meeting,
Thank you. It is 10:59. We are re-adjourning from a closed session. And there are no items to report, no action taken. Normally, we would go to deferred consent agenda items, but I'm going to take that out of order since we have our next presenter present in the room via Zoom. And just so the other board members are aware, we have one member of the public here in the audience and a couple members participating by Zoom. So, Executive Director Lapierre, will you start this off, or?
I believe, Chairman, there are a couple of items for consent agenda.
Yeah, we're going to defer that just because we have Doug present here now, and
Very good. I'm sorry.
and Howard,
Just
we're
back in.
paying them a salary, at least one of them.
I apologize, yeah. This is the first presentation, or the second presentation on redrawing of the district election maps. Doug Johnson is on the line to walk you through. This is the first of 3 meetings that you'll have regarding this. And this is a follow-on to the meeting that you had previously at a special meeting.
Okay, and just for just to remind everybody that because this is a redistricting and not the initial efforts, these do not have to be public hearings, these are just agenda items, correct, Doug?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
I
Although
think you're muted.
I will note just for the record that this has been advertised in the newspaper. We will also continue the advertisements in the newspaper for the other, prior to the other hearings as well, before the other meetings. So there will be plenty of public notice on this, but it is not legally required to be a public hearing. That's correct.
Very good. Okay. Doug.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be with you all again. the goal of today's meeting is I'll very briefly describe kind of what the situation is with the current divisions. But our real goal today is to get input from the board on any ideas or guidance you'd wish to provide prior to drawing draft maps. And then we'll come back at your next meeting with draft maps for you to consider. So, and just note, whatever ideas or guidance you wish to give now, we certainly welcome and appreciate. But if you do prefer to wait until the draft maps come out and react to those, that's certainly acceptable to what as well. So whatever your preference. First of all, let me see if I can put the numbers up here. I'm going to put up the demographics of the current districts, or in your case, current divisions. So you see up here in the top right, the total percent deviation is 15.59%. That's calculated as the difference between the largest district's difference from the ideal and the smallest division. So we've got Division 4 is currently your largest at 8.36% overpopulated, above the ideal population. And Division 2 is the smallest at 7.23% short of the ideal. So that difference between 8.36 and 7.23, if you add those two numbers up, we get to 15.59. That number needs to be certainly less than 10%. And obviously as close to zero as possible for more precisely balanced seats. So definitely 2 needs to add population, 4 needs to lose population. 5 is almost perfectly balanced. So you can still change it if there are reasons you'd like to change it for the other criteria, but it doesn't need to change from a population perspective. And then 1 and 3 are right at that edge of what would result in a 10% spread, because they're both over 4% off. 1 is 4% short, 3 is 4% over. So as long as we're redrawing the map, it's probably a good idea to adjust those a little bit to make them closer to zero, but you don't have to. In terms of how to balance them out, I'll bring up the map. So in terms of requirements, we have to have equal population, as I was just discussing. We have to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, and we have to avoid racial gerrymandering. So race cannot be the predominant factor. It can be considered, but it can't be the predominant factor. After that, you really have a lot of flexibility to balance what are called traditional redistricting principles. So that's things like respecting communities of interest in neighborhoods, trying to keep the divisions compact and contiguous, and following major roads so they're easily understood by residents and voters. The courts have said you can have as one of your considerations avoiding putting 2 current directors in different divisions. The idea there is let the voters make re-election decisions, not the lines dictate to the voters. And then 2 changes from districting. There are 2 factors that only come up in redistricting. One is you can try to minimize the number of voters who move from a 2022 seat to a 2024 seat. Some of that is often inevitable in redistricting, but you can try to minimize that. And if you wish, you can also, one other traditional goal is to try to keep together the core of divisions that have already held elections, so that residents in those who have worked and networked and built relationships to try to influence the past election can continue to work with those same people going forward. Again, those are all traditional principles or goals. They're not requirements. So we do have, you have this map. We also have an interactive map I can show if you want me to zoom in on any details about where the division borders are currently. But with that, I will stop and welcome any questions, comments, or direction you wish to give, and of course any public comments as well.
Okay, thank you. Is there any member of the public that would like to make a statement at this time? Howard?
My name is Howard Fossler. I'm here representing the Ladies and Women Voters of Monterey County. Our objective is to observe the process as it folds out on the various elective organizations in our county. So this is all very interesting to us, and of course, it's the foundation of our democratic system. So it's very, very important work that you're doing. I want you to know how much we appreciate the concern and effort you put into it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll open it up to a question from the board. We will start on the other end this time. Director Leppel, any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
you do have a member of the public online. You do have a member of the public online with a hand raised.
Thank you for catching that. And I apologize, but I cannot see that from here. Who's
Jean Rash.
Yes,
Jean,
I guess.
Jean Roush.
Jean Rout? Ms. Rout, would you like to make public comment? Can we open it up for her to talk?
She just has to unmute.
I believe you're muted.
Is our guest a member of the public?
We cannot. We believe so, yes. Okay, just says yes.
Jean, you're muted. If you want to unmute, and then you can make a comment. Jean, are you there? Well, Mr. Chair, I would, oh, there we go. Jean,
Yeah,
are you there?
we can come back if she joins us.
Well, she just unmuted.
Hi.
Hi, you wanted to make public comment?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't have my hand up.
Okay, your hand's up now if you want to take it down, I believe.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Director Leffel.
Doug, obviously, we need to change some of these just so that they're more in balance. I get that. So I thought when we met last time with you that we were going to have a community open meeting so that we could take comments from the public prior to us giving you direction. I thought that's what I heard, that otherwise we want to make sure we don't miss anything of ideas that might come forward that we had not considered. So obviously I missed the process of what we were doing because this is the same thing we did last time, and there you go. I have nothing to add at this point. I would like to hear from the community first.
Okay. What were you hoping to, what involvement were you hoping to get? Apparently we advertised and we did attract a couple people, but.
Scott, was that for our hearing? Is this a hearing?
So the advertisement was for this meeting today for members of the public to come to this meeting and give their opinions as to whatever they thought about the redistricting process.
Okay.
Isn't that a hearing? No? Would that qualify as a hearing?
Well, so it does not, under the legal standard of a public hearing, public hearings are not required, but we did advertise it for them to come and give their opinion in a public setting. We did call it a public hearing, but there is a legal definition of public hearing, and it's literally coming to a board in an advertised fashion to give comments.
Okay, then I missed it in the Herald, so, I did not see how it was worded. So at that point, I'm going to make a couple comments. I believe, it's just looking at the numbers, we can see where we need to subtract and where we need to add. I think it would be in everyone's best interest to try to keep more Pacific Grove together, because it's split in several ways. We split out the beach track when we did the first maps. So it seems like and it's probably, is that David Avenue, maybe that big line that goes down, Carl? Because that's the
Yes.
division between Monterey. So where David Avenue goes down and you've got the beach track there at Pacific Road, it seems to me that that would be a good way to give that to Pacific Road, but then cut into coming the other way to balance it out population wise. The real wild card here, and I can tell you, it's a difficult one to crack because they vote for president, vice president, and they do not vote in local elections, even though they're in our redistricting, are all of the members at the Defense Language Institute. So they look like we've got a lot of people there, but when you look at their voting record, they don't vote past number 1 and 2, and possibly they vote for the Congress person, but they don't vote locally for the most part. So I think when we look at that, we really have to look at that population. It's very transient. Most of them that were there in 2018 and 2016 were nowhere to be found in 2020, nor will the ones that were there in 20 be there in 2022, because they're here typically for 6 months to a year, and then they move on. So I just want to point that out, because if you're not familiar with that community, it's not apparent to you, and it looks like, oh, there's a lot of people, I'll just stick them in. So they are actually in 3 and in 4. And those are all those little tiny marks that start down by the ocean and come up along the division between Pacific Road and Monterey. But they're hard to find, they're hard to market to, and they are typically non-voters. So with that being said, if you look at the numbers with Seaside, it looks like Seaside item number 1 would be pretty easy to fix just by moving the streets slightly and go to another major street and pick up the percent that we need to keep that together, which would also probably give us a good grip on people of like ethnicities. So with that, those are my thoughts on it. I think, we've got some work to do between the Pacific Grove, Monterey border in particular, just trying to even that up. That's
Sounds good, thank you. Director Swanee. Director Swanee?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Miller. I too was kind of surprised. I don't think the public was as informed as they could have been. I'm not sure there was any social media advertising or other things. And I think it would be helpful as a director to really understand, if we have constituents or others that would like to make comment. I appreciate the league, Mr. Fazil being here. I know he was at our first meeting as well. So I think that would be helpful if we can at least, I think we've got 3 meetings planned as we go through this process. I too, we've got a lot of, especially when we get over to Pacific Grove and Carmel, if we can try and straighten those lines a bit, I think that would be helpful. I also thought with Seaside, if you just move something over, or even if you look at the land, it seems that there's a lot of the blue, and I know this is Fort Ord, but does that make sense to make that more under, instead of, so the blue and the pink colors on our maps, to shift that? It would be interesting for me as one director to see the land space that's being represented in each of these areas. I know we've got population as well, and we've got facts on that, but I don't think, if you look at number 5, that's obviously very large, and I don't, and I understand that may be more information than we want to pay for, or that could be there, but you know, even just some sort of highlighting of park space would be interesting as well. So I think those are my comments. I did have one question, and this is maybe for Mr. Huber. I know this is happening in other regions. I know Marina went through kind of, districting, and Monterey is obviously going through it right now. What happens with the currently elected people that are in a certain, we've shifted to districts, Monterey hasn't, but you are elected for your 4 years until, things come up, or how does that work? My question, I didn't articulate it as well as I could have, but.
I understand exactly the question you're asking. So you have been elected for 4 years or appointed, right? You will serve out the term to which you have been elected or appointed, regardless of how the maps shift. When the time comes that your term ends, your ability to run for re-election and the district that you will be in will determine where you run or which district you run from and what the sequence is of that election. So I'll just use as an example. If board member A, their term expires in 2022, if the district that they're in is a district that comes up in 2022, that board member will be able to run in 2022. If they're in a district that is up in 2024, but their term ends in 2022, then their term ends in 2022, they come off the board, they would have to wait for 2 years before they could run for re-election. Does that make sense? And it technically wouldn't be re-election, it would be election again, so to speak. But typically the most common scenario is there generally is an effort to try and match up trustees that are in the voting district. If you are a lone trustee in a voting district after the maps are adopted, then typically there's an effort to try and sequence that when your current term ends. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's usually that's the preference in an effort to try and honor the vote of the people.
Thank you. I know, and it's not, I know it's a question that's going around in the community, so I appreciate, and I know obviously some of our neighbors are dealing with districting and looking at that, so it will have impacts. People are gonna have to move or shift or do something ultimately. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Director Curcio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually don't have any comment at this time. I'd like to hold off until I see the actual drawings of the adjustments of the districts. So I don't have anything at this time.
And the director who has half of the district, at least in land mass, Director Sabo.
And rightly so, might have.
Are you going to walk door to door to?
I don't envy your task there. I guess I forgot your name, but the person that does these maps, it makes my head explode trying to mentally move these things around. Obviously, something has to be done with districts 4 and 3. They seem to stand out rather significantly, and movements into 1 and 2 seem obvious and appropriate. I would add, as one of the additional elements for lower level consideration, I noticed that the language spoken at home, there's significant differences between the districts of 1 and 2 versus 3, 4, and 5. And I think that might be one of the considerations that we have in developing the new maps, and that might be consistent with the population shifts that we see from that will be required from 4 and 3 versus 1 and 2. So I think the language spoken at home gives us a pretty good read on some aspects of the considerations going forward here. And I would ask that if possible, if it's appropriate, Mr. Chairman, I would like to hear from members of the public and Mr. Fosler, if it's appropriate here, about what the League of Women Voters have as a consideration for these maps that we have before we adjourn. If it's not appropriate, I'm okay with that. But thank you for this presentation. And then what happens after this with these things? Do you take our comments and adjust the maps accordingly and give us some more drafts?
Yes, exactly. We'd come back with at least 2 and possibly 3 options for how the divisions could be adjusted and for your consideration at your February meeting.
That would be for the February meeting.
Correct.
That was just it. Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's all the comments.
Okay, thank you. For myself, I'm an at-large director for the moment. I am up for re-election coming up this year. And I will be representing or running in district. Are we calling these districts or sub-districts? How do you refer to them? Since we are a district and we have district.
Right. Technically, they're divisions, but as you've heard, I and just about everybody often slip into calling them districts.
So I am in Division 4, which is the fatter of the ones, at least population-wise. I do think we should do more to square off some of what's in Monterey and move that population to the parts of Pacific Grove that District 3 has, just to make these more city autonomous, if that's the right word. That's just my opinion. But I look forward to seeing the maps. As far as League of Women Voters, is probably you're waiting to see the maps as well before you have comment. I know, but go ahead if you wanted to speak. We're informal at this point, so I'll give you an opportunity.
We have a list, and I can bring it with me the next time. What's interesting to me is that this community of interest thing can work for and against our goals. By putting all the one minority group in one section, they get a voice, but they don't get represented anywhere else. So there's 2 sides to that coin, and it's a very tricky one. So my view is, or in the board's or the league's view, is to keep the communities of interest as a very secondary consideration, because it just somebody's going to lose out if you do that. This doesn't seem to work very well. So we're much more interested in spreading out the representation, so everybody has a roughly 10% or of the population, no more than 10% of the population, and so on, like you're doing now. So other than that,
well, I think the requirement, Doug, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there is can't be 10% more than a 10% deviance from between these sub-districts.
Right. So there can't be. So we individually figure out the deviation from the ideal of each division, and the difference between the largest division's deviation and the smallest division's deviation can be no more than 10%. So, as a rule of thumb, we often say plus or minus 5% for each division. Although theoretically, you could have one that's 7% over if nothing else was more than 3% short, kind of thing. yes, we are looking, the key thing to keep in mind is that 10% range.
And of course, we are bound by the thrust of the Voter Rights Act in California, and that is that minority, majority portions of a district be carved out so they have a greater voice.
Correct. Yeah, the California law is what brought the District 2 by division elections, and of course, the federal version is oversees our redistricting process. So yes, that we do. That will be, of course, primary in our mapping considerations to be sure that we comply with both those statutes.
Now, when we first did this years ago, we were under a federal decree where we in Monterey County had to get approval. Is that still in existence? That my understanding, according, if I remember how you explained it, it dates back to the 70s when we had an active military base here, and that somehow skewed the numbers. So we were lumped in with places like Georgia and Mississippi that for other reasons, of course, but we have to get federal consideration. Is that still the case?
So no, that was it was referred to as Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act and pre-clearance requirements. So that is no longer in effect. There's no pre-clearance provisions right now. Well, the pre-clearance provisions are still in the law, but they don't apply to any jurisdiction under current Supreme Court rulings. That of course is being debated today in the Senate. It's not expected to be reinstated, but there are various proposals that would reinstate that. But for now, where the law stands, you're correct. There's no pre-clearance required.
Very good. Next step, Executive Director.
Next step would be to just, this is informational at this point. At the next meeting, you'll have another one of these where I believe Doug will show you a couple of potential drawings for you to consider. That's the next step. This is the process. You're in step 2 or 4. First.
And on the 4th meeting, we will adopt, and that has to be done prior to what's the drop dead date here? April, I think.
April.
Doug, what's the drop dead date we have to have this done by?
April 17th.
April 17th. Okay. Thank you, everybody. And we will move on now to, let me find my agenda here. We are going to move back to deferred consent agenda items. Director Swanee, you had some questions with items 2, 4, and 6.
Thank you, Chair Miller. But I'm confused because I believe there was a motion for 2, but it was really hard. Maybe Attorney Huber could confirm what was motioned or what was, I abstained because.
So here's what happened. Yes, you did abstain. Everybody else approved it. So we have approved item number 1 and item number 3. You have pulled item number 2, minutes of the regular meeting for December 15th. You pulled item number 4, minutes of the committee for air carrier service. And you pulled item number 6, minutes for the committee for airport property development. Item number 5, minutes of the committee for budget and finance for January 11th. That has been tabled until the February meeting.
Okay. And I had pulled 1 and 5 because we had the 2 there. But I'll take my comments offline with the attorney. And I had to put them in order of date because all of my information got mixed up. So let me go to the special meeting of the 7th. And I don't think we had, actually, we didn't have an update to that. I think we did get a recap about that. So I'll move that table. Sorry about that.
Okay.
With confusing, but
So item number 1, minutes of the committee and budget finance for December 13th. That has been approved and we will not be talking about that. Minutes for the special meeting on January 7th, that has been approved and we won't be talking about that.
okay.
So you have pulled item number 2, minutes for the regular meeting, December 15th. You don't want to talk about that one? At this
Let me get the meeting minutes. No, I would like to talk about that. I do have updates. I believe at the end of the meeting, and we would have to go back, but I believe I also requested a travel update and conference attendance for all on the board, as well as any, the executive staff, just any travel that we had. Is my memory incorrect on that? I meant to, and I will do it this month if I didn't do it last month, because I know I've got pending travel coming up this year for conferences. And obviously with COVID back where we are, I think, we're always reassessing that at this point.
Well, I'm not sure what you're looking for. I mean, typically what we do is we have an understanding that we can attend 2 conferences outside the area. And we are given a list by staff of available conferences that describes the dates, the locations, and are we set to do that again? We can certainly.
We did that during budget, Mr. Chairman. There are a couple of board members that identified the conferences they would like to attend. Other board members delayed that. So if there's a conference that has not been previously approved by the board that a board member wants to attend, it would be appropriate for that board member to bring that to the board for approval.
Can you redistribute that list for the remainder of the year?
Sure.
Yeah, there was a lot that wasn't detailed too at that point, and I think that was also COVID. I think we were given that in June. So
Correct. Yeah, there were a lot of meetings that had not been scheduled because of COVID and the uncertainty there. So we can go back and try to recreate that. If that's what you're asking for, that should be a fairly simple thing.
Yeah, and if we could get it to the individual board members, and then if there is an interest in attending a conference for this budget year, then you can bring that to the board's attention, and we have to collectively either approve or not approve conferences. Most of them are approved. Although if you did say you wanted to attend the one in Paris, we may not approve that one. So locally in country, and we tend to look for those. Okay, thank you.
And so I just wanted the record to show, I believe I requested that, and it's not on the agenda this month. I did have a proposal, and I'll just share that with you, Chair, at this point, or who do I actually want to attend a local business thing in the community through, but I don't know how to, because I believe I had
Why
requested.
don't we save that for the end of the agenda for future agenda items, so we can discuss it at that time.
Perfect. And then the other thing, and I don't believe this is reflected in the meeting minutes on the December 15th, but I had also requested, and I believe other members of the board, the long overdue strategic plan retreat, or whatever we're calling that event, be conducted within the month. And I know we've done rescheduling of things, but I didn't see anything in the notes about that. And I would like that reflected if possible.
I'm sorry,
That is, that's in the discussion.
it's on, so it's not captured in the minutes right now, but it is on for future agenda items on this agenda here to discuss. But we did select a date for,
It's, Carl, it's in the minutes of the December 15th meeting under discussion of future agendas
okay,
from that meeting.
It is on there.
Comments that are reflected in that.
thank you. So it is there under future agenda items.
The 15th?
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I'm being told.
This is the very last item on the minutes, and it's item L.
Yeah, quarterly. Okay, I see there. Yes, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, very good. So that's item number 2. What about item 4, minutes of the committee meeting for air carrier service?
On the last time, this regular agenda item for December 15th.
Go ahead.
Okay. I wasn't gonna comment on this, but since it was brought up,
Just 1 second, Mr. Sabo. Is there a reason we don't have a camera either on, is Attorney Huber, did he go?
Yes, he did.
he's flying.
He's flying, and how about our executive staff that's speaking?
They're there.
There's no camera? We don't have a camera on for those that are. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Director Sabo and Chair Miller.
Go ahead.
Okay, this was regarding the presentation under the regular agenda for December 15th. It was my comment after the presentation that there was no alternative provided other than bond financing. And then I was informed that the Finance Committee had requested additional analyses, and I asked then that additional analysis be provided to the board. And those are the comments that I made at that point in the request that I made that is reflected in the minutes.
I seem to recall you asked for a copy of that. You wanted that information sent to you?
I can't remember how I worded it, but I thought the board ought to be apprised of the options other than the bond financing. And so I thought it was to be something that could be provided to the whole board since it was provided to the Finance Committee.
Director, may I ask?
Sure.
What topics you were speaking of? I'm a little confused by what you're
Okay, this is the presentation that we got on December 15th
on what topic?
on the bond financing. I mean, the CalPERS alternative.
Oh,
It's listed on the agenda.
Pension funding analysis by PFM Financial Advisors.
okay.
Okay. And my comment, just to reiterate, my comment was directed to the presenter, and they said, how come you don't have any alternatives other than bond financing? And we did that already with the Finance Committee. I said, well, that presentation, can you share that with the board? And it seemed to be different agreement on that, but that's what should be included in the minutes.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I don't recall getting it, but that's not the subject of my concern. My concern is the minutes.
So, yeah, if you could amend the minutes, and if there was like a PowerPoint presentation, if you could get that to the other directors, that would be nice.
Yeah, we can provide that. Independent from minutes. Yeah, but yes.
My understanding, there's been no decision made on that area, and this will be discussed further, either at a retreat or at another
That's
meeting.
correct.
So,
Yeah.
Okay,
That's correct.
okay, thank you. Let's move on to item number 4, the minutes of the air carrier service. Director 20.
Yes, I was wondering, so page 2 of the notes from January 10th, I'm wondering if there was a strategic marketing plan update discussed in that meeting? because it's well overdue, I think by about 6 months.
I'll kick that back to you. I know we did have Mr. Sidlaw come and do a presentation to us.
Yeah, we did two presentations to the board and two presentations to the Air Service and Marketing Committee regarding the marketing plan. That constitutes the marketing plan for this year. That's how we presented it. That's how the board acted. So I think we've accomplished that for this year.
That answer your question, Director Sonny?
No, that's not my recollection. And we even have emails to the board in effect to other things. And I mean, the record can stand for itself, but it was the iteration. It had come to the board a second time and had been shared, but there was no strategic plan. And that was discussed largely. That's my recollection. And I'm still looking for that. And
Okay, well, when we handle this as a future agenda item, you'll have an opportunity to bring it up when we get to that portion of the meeting.
okay, I appreciate that.
Okay, and
Lisa, on the 12th, I was wondering, so we talk about Sky Park and Mr. Gentry. Do we have financial details that have been shared with the board about this? Or what's the status of this in this discussion? And it was discussion number 3.
so this would be for the transfer of
Sky Park.
yes.
That has not been brought to the board yet. I just got part of the financials to begin the analysis. I do not have them all. It will come to committee first,
Yeah.
and then back to the full board, likely in February.
And I know we were going to report out on that, but it was going to be very vague. There's been no decisions made. They're still in the negotiation phase. I think it's important that we recognize we don't want to interfere in that, or we don't want to give somebody else that may have an interest in obtaining the property an unfair glimpse, at least while the negotiations are going on.
Mr. Chairman, I'm a little, maybe Director Sonny can clarify this. I'm a little unclear as to what's wrong with the minutes of, on item 6. On the judge. What's wrong with the minutes?
I was just looking for clarity on what information, whether the board had, or whether the lead committee had seen numbers or things of that nature. So I was just looking for clarity on that. Thank you.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong. I just wanted clarity and wanted to understand more.
Okay. You want to make a motion to approve, since you pulled them, you want to make a motion to approve items I2, 4, and 6.
I'll be happy to with item number, the December 15th meeting, item number L in page 7 of 7. I still think it needs to state that we need a strategic meeting and not just a financial meeting. And I believe those are, I mean, you can go back and listen to what I said, but I think that needs to be stated, that the safety enhancement program. So that would be my motion.
Can we add that to the minutes that Director Sonny wants a more strategic meeting and not just a financial report? Okay, thank you.
Right.
Okay. Is that the motion?
We have a second?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay, motion passes. The only thing out of consent that was tabled was item number 5I5, and you'll be bringing that back in,
Bringing that back February, I did distribute both electronically to those not in attendance and in hard copy to those in attendance.
thank you.
Actual minutes.
It happens.
Sorry about
we-
that.
No problem. We had, you had a very busy consent agenda here, so you had a lot of information, but yeah, we understand those things happen. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get back on track here. If we could go to item K2, Mr. Lapierre, resolution number 1812. Would you be heading that up?
I'll tee it up and Chris Morello will provide potatoes. This is resolution 1812. It's a resolution authorizing and approving a service agreement between the airport district and Granite Drilling Company. This is for the wells at 2801 Monterey Salinas Highway and also on the airport property behind Tarpey's Restaurant. These are existing wells. We finally got the permits from the county to re-drill those wells to determine how much water each will generate and to look at how we will distribute that water. The intention behind this, first and foremost, is to find water to take the car wash, the QTA facility off of Callahan Public Water, which will save about 1 acre foot of potable water. So I'll let Chris walk you through the.
Ms. Morello, can you help us out here?
I will try. Good morning, Board of Directors. I will talk about 1812, but Resolution 1813, the next item on the agenda, will be part of this discussion because these two items do go hand in hand. They both have to do with the drilling of the two wells, one at 2801 Monterey Salinas Highway and the other at 2999 Monterey Salinas Highway. Back in July of 2021, we had Bierman Hydrologic and Kimley Horn do a presentation to the board talking about the 4 wells actually that we had on airport property. It was determined at that time that we would move forward, and the board gave direction to staff to move forward with the wells at these 2 locations, given the fact that they had produced in the past and are in aquifers that we believe will give us some substantial water for, as Director Lapierre said, taking the car wash facility off of Cal-Am and putting them on a non-potable water solution. So at that time, we were directed as staff to go back to the county and submit the applications for both destruction of the existing wells because they were both compromised and construction of new replacement wells. With that, we did submit those in July. The county has finally been able to start to process replacement well permits. In November, we received notification that the 2999 Salinas Highway property was approved, but not on the other one. So we were waiting to bring these together as a group to the board because it is better to do one mobilization for the well contractor, as well as the hydrology testing after it. So we, those properties, so what the county was waiting on was that the property at 2999, which is behind Tarpey's, sits within the city of Delray Oaks limits. The property at 2801 Monterey Salinas Highway still sits within the city of Monterey permitting limits. While they're both airport property, they were acquired after the airport district was formed, so they still have authorities under those jurisdictions for permitting process. The city of Monterey hadn't responded yet to the county, so they went back and asked them to look at those and give their provide input, which the city of Monterey then did. And in early December, we received notification that the other well was also approved, and we got the destruction and construction permits from the county for both those. We have 1 year to use those permits and to get the process done. So with that, we once we have the two, to Bierman Hydrologic, who uses pretty exclusively the company of Granite Drilling, Granite Well Drilling, as the company that they use for drilling wells. They are known to be the best in the community. They're out of Salinas. So they went and put together the proposals that will allow for the drilling of those two wells. Right now, we anticipate going up to 800 feet at both locations. It could be less depending upon what they see when they get in there and when they hit water and what the quality of the water will be at those locations. They will also, and that once the well is drilled, they will have to go back within, according to the county's guidelines, 180 days to do the destruction of the existing wells. So with that, at the same time, Bierman Hydrologic will then be doing the capacity testing. So once the wells get drilled, they'll be doing both the analysis of the water quality and all of the requirements set by the county for doing a well. So they will do all the testing pieces and submit those to the county for approval, as well as at that point, we will know capacity of what we will get for yields from those. So this is really just step 2 of a soon to be 3-step process. The third step will then be to put in the water conveyance system and the right size of the pumps. So the pumps aren't included. There are pumps included enough to do the capacity testing, but until we know what the capacity is of those wells, the pumps won't be included in this component, because it really, that size is determined by the depth and the capacity of what kind of water will come out. So with that, we would ask that you, so I'll go into the numbers for you. So the Granite Drilling Company proposal at 2801 would be to drill the well would be $151,300, and the destruction of the existing would be $12,500. The 2999 Monterey Salinas Highway location to drill that well is $203,200, and the destruction of that one would be $13,500, for a total proposal from Granite Drilling of $380,500. I will remind you that at the July meeting, when we had talked about these, we had anticipated that the total, and I'll just mention Bierman Hydraulics right now, which is 60,000. So these numbers combined are about 100,000 less than our original estimate that we had provided at the July 7th meeting. So we had thought that the two wells together could be upwards for drilling and destruction of $540,000. So this is below the estimate that we had provided to you before when we had did the presentation. So with that, we ask that you approve resolution 1812 for Granite Drilling Company in a not to exceed amount of $380,500. And I will answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak on this issue? We have no members of the public in the chambers at this time, but we do have one on the line. I can't make that out.
Susan Giovanni.
What's that?
Her name is Susan.
Okay. Susan, did you want to comment on this item? No. Okay. Let's open it up to board questions.
She was not, no, she was not muted. She was muted.
Carl, ask her again.
Hi, Susan, do you want to comment on item number K2?
No, I did not. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome. Thank you for attending our meeting. Okay, Director Sabo, any questions for staff?
I do. I have a question. I didn't listen hard enough, Chris. Could you tell me if you mentioned was this put out for bid by competing firms, or was this a direct selection
This was it was a direct selection. Aaron Bierman with Bierman Hydrologic uses Granite Drilling. And in all the research we did, they are the best drilling company for wells in the community. They do the majority of them, and they are not the one that we had before where the wells failed. So we thought that there was our understanding, only a couple companies, and this is not the one that drilled the wells that failed.
Well, I have confidence in your professional judgments and those of our engineers, but I'm kind of curious as to why we don't have competitive bids. And instead we decide at a staff level that these are the guys we want. You know, this is kind of a competitive bid environment, you know, on these contracts. Why don't we do that?
Let me comment on that. I can tell you it was brought before the lease committee. There are only two companies. One that has a very good reputation, I believe, has done some work for us that we were very happy with. The other company, which I don't really want to get into detail right now about, that's not the case. And those were the only two options available for us.
Okay, I understand your station. I think that would have been helpful in the staff presentation on the staff analysis to know that, because I'm a kind of a proponent of competitive bidding if it's at all possible. If one of the two people that firms that can't be really considered, I gotta get that, but that something about that should have been mentioned here.
It's just the order that it came in because we discussed this at the last lease committee meeting.
Yeah.
And we would have brought that up. We don't have to do it now, but the plan was when we discussed it. This is just moving very fast. So we didn't have a chance to report out.
Okay, I'm not trying to fault anybody. I'm basically making a pitch for more competitive bidding and including in the staff analysis, the fact that it was competitively bid rather than we made the decision we're going this direction. So that it's mostly a commentary on whether we do competitive bidding or not. The other concern that I have here is traditionally I have complained as one board member about our capital budgets and the lack of real explanation of some of the projects that are proposed in the capital budget. There is very little definition of what is intended to not be accomplished by the expenditures of other people's money. At the time that this came up in the capital budget last June, I asked about a project called the water system analysis. And I said, gee, we're planning on spending upwards of $630,000 in this fiscal year. What is that? What's the benefit to the district and how much, what's going to happen out of that? Well, the answer that was given to me in my notes was, that's the purpose of doing the analysis, was to find out how much water we could get out of this thing and whether or not it would meet the needs of the car rental companies and whether it was economically feasible. And we could put a dollar figure on how much projected water we would get out of that and what the benefit would be to the district. Well, now I'm looking at the presentation that we got about this from Kimley Horn, and they didn't talk about that. They said they didn't give us any projected water volumes or anything like that, although they said that was a necessary requirement. So I'm still puzzled by why are we doing this? And if we don't know how much, we aren't even spitballing in the presentation we got about how much water is going to be produced, how much water was produced when the wells were active and all that sort of thing. We're talking about approving resolutions that are about $400,000 today. And we don't, at least as one board member, I don't know what benefit we're going to get out of this, because nobody's even speculated as to how much water we're going to get. The executive director speculated in his memo that maybe might be 1 acre foot, but I went back through all of our stuff and there's no information that supports that statement. And I'd like to know more about that before we spend, even though it's CFC money and it's restricted, I'd like to know more about what we expect to have really come out of this project, because the next step goes to spending the money to actually provide the distribution of that water up to $2 million. And the train left the station here with some necessary steps missing. So that's my concern.
Well, we did have prior discussion on this. It was brought to the board. We do not know how much water will come out of there until, it's just the way, the nature of the business, until you actually drill the well. But like Mark Twain said, the best predictor of the future is the past. And we do know how much water did come out of that well, and that was brought to our attention. Chris, remind me what that number was?
Let me look and see.
I got some slides from Tim Horn's presentation here. It doesn't say anything about future past production out of the wells or future. It says we probably ought to consider that, but there's no information on that. I'm not trying to find people did things wrong. I just, before I cast my vote to spend $400,000 CFC money, I'd like to know what the past production was and what our probabilities are for gaining the necessary water for the rental car companies.
I believe, Director, that when Aaron Bierman was here with Kinley Horn, he gave you some ballpark numbers. In terms of historical data, there is none about how much water each of these wells has generated. Neither have been active for quite some time. I think that we did get some well information from the Bentley Keller acquisition, but that did not include volumes. So Mr. Bierman gave you ballpark numbers based on his knowledge of the area. Is that correct, Chris?
That is correct. Yes. We do know too that they're on different aquifers as well. The aquifer for the 2999 Monterey Salinas Highway is well known to produce quite substantial amounts of water. So we anticipate that that's what we will see. But again, until we get there and we drill, we won't know. I do see that 2 directors have their hands up.
I see it also, but just to let Director Sonny and Director Curcio know, I'll be following a particular order here with Director Curcio next, then Director Sonny, then Director Lefty. So we're still with Director Sabo.
Okay,
Anything else?
My objective here is not to find somebody wrong. I would just like to have better information as a board member before I say yes to spending money. And that means the details of what we expect to accomplish by all this, or at least the reasonable expectations of the whole thing, because it's not mentioned anywhere in the staff report. It's not mentioned in the slides from back in December. I guess it was December, Kinley Horn's presentation. Doesn't mention anything there. You mentioned it, Mike, as 1 acre foot, but nobody knows. I don't know where that came from. And I think it's important because I know what the next step is here, based on our track record of no explanation of capital budget, no explanation in the staff report here. The next thing is going to be, well, let's spend the money on the distribution out here. I don't know what the criteria is going to be for spending more money. You know, how much do we have to produce out of these wells before we consider it successful and a good thing for the rental company, car rental companies? That's my purpose. Is there any way we can get that information the same way you got it, Mike? 1 acre foot, that's a lot of water.
And my estimation, my comment was related to the commentary that Aaron Bierman made during his presentation.
So this is verbal comment.
We know that the QTA right now uses just about an acre foot of water. That we know because that's the consumption that comes through our billing process. So they use just about an acre for the water. Sharing that information along with the information that Mr. Bierman, the professional, believes we could see a generation off of these wells. We believe that this effort would allow us to take the QTA off of potable water. That would be potable water that we're no longer using, but would still be part of our allotment. So replacing potable with non-potable from these two wells recovers about an acre foot of potable water, maybe more. We don't know that, but we have a reasonable assumption based on professional knowledge of the area that we can recover at least that.
Okay, so we go forward, and just my education here as a board member is going to have to vote on spending money. So if we come up with this bit on it, a half an acre foot rather than a full acre foot of water, or we come up with 40% of that, does that mean we stop then, or are we going to keep going forward no matter what because we're getting some water out of it?
So that would be more considered. The next step after we drill the waters and we know what the volumes are, what the wells can generate. The next step, as you said, will be a distribution facility. Now, part of the distribution facility is already there from the east end of the airport, basically to where the new commercial ramp will be built. That's we just reverse flow. Because right now we're using that distribution facility to provide irrigation to the plantings that we had to do with the RSA at the wall for the RSA.
Yeah.
That obligation goes away at the end of this year. So we'll no longer have to provide irrigation. We stop that irrigation, we turn around, and we've got a good portion of the well water from Tarpey's, whatever it generates, accessible up on top of the plateau. Not all the way. There's still going to be a distribution facility to get the water from there to where it's useful. But once we know that, once we know what the volumes are, then we can come back to you and say, here are the volumes, this is what it was for us, and this is where we think we want to take it.
Okay, I understand that. And here's what I, as just one board member and Mr. Cranky on this subject, what I want to see is those actual figures come back before we go forward with the distribution system out here. In the enthusiasm to kind of keep going and meet our deadlines here for the permits and all that, I don't want to get the cart before the horse here and that, well, it only turned out to be half an acre foot, but you know, let's go for it anyhow. And so here's the permit. We need to get this done, you know, because we have already, as a board in the capital budget, we have authorized $2,132,000. We already authorized that, and our staff report on this one says you already did that. You already approved it before. I don't want to go forward for that extra $1.5 million without a better explanation of what we found and what makes sense from a payback to the district. And it's not to beat everybody up here, but I want better staff work to support decisions on spending a lot of money.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and we have this issue regularly about the capital budget. We include those in the capital budget. We include a project at $2.1 million in the capital budget. It's been there for some time, anticipating these kinds of things. So we have a line item in the budget to say it's in the budget. It doesn't mean that you have approved the expenditure. We're asking you to approve an expenditure today that will allow us to drill the wells. The next step would be an expenditure, should those wells be productive, to construct the distribution. So
I get that.
So
Logic.
I think we're aligned.
You know, what I'm really asking for is a better explanation of what you just said in the capital budget. But when we get to the staff report here, it says you already approved this in your capital budget. Okay, and I understand we have to approve the contracts, But, you know, the train already left the station by that point, you know, so. And I understand what you're saying. I'm not trying to beat it to death, but I would like better staff information when we're spending substantial amounts of money.
But it sounds like everybody's saying the same thing, Director Sabo. They're not asking to build the distribution. At this time, they will come back to us with a contract, and we can certainly waive the cost and benefits of that program at that time. That would be appropriate. But right now, we're just moving forward, and there are no guarantees when you drill a well that it's going to produce anything at all. You just work on the person, and that's one reason why we selected people that have a good reputation of doing quality work. Okay, anything else? Director Sabo.
No, and just to comment, we are not saying the same thing. I was saying something substantially different. And what I'm asking for is better information in the next go around before the contracts are presented to us. So anyhow, yes, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Director Curcio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, Director Sabo, I asked exactly the same two questions that you asked at our lease meeting prior to bringing it to the full board. And quickly, the question, I asked first the question about why did we not get a competitive bid? And when I was informed of the two operators that were available or could do this work, and then I was given the name of the one that we did not pick. It was in terrific good judgment by our staff to pick this company that we have chosen. The alternative is just has a very poor reputation in our community, especially among agriculture, about just being completely bollocksed up. So that was a really good decision, and that was satisfied my question about why did we not get another bid. Secondly, and I would like to see either Chris or Executive Director Lapierre go into a little more detail that you did go into at our lease meeting as to the proposed ability to be able to get non-potable water for use at the car wash, and also talked about having enough water for non-potable use in the new terminal. And I just would like you to quickly go over that again. As far as guarantees as to how much water we're going to receive, when you order a well built, whether it's for a golf course or for irrigating a crop, you don't know how many gallons per minute you're going to get until they start pumping water. So the two things you have to make sure that are correct is that the installations are done correctly, and that, first of all, you're talking about two different aquifers here. We know there's water in each of those. So there's very, very low risk as to us not being able to get sufficient water for our needs. If the construction is correct, all of the equipment is correct, and you again, there's no guarantee. But I think it might be helpful, Executive Director, if you do go into like the detail you went into with us about the uses for that water.
To the extent, Director, that I haven't done that, I'd be happy to. The water, once we know the volumes, we have a portion of the delivery system already constructed. We'll use that existing delivery system when the water is available to get it up on top of the plateau or the hill, if you will. That system only goes as far as, I don't know, how do you describe how far west it comes? First, what's a good description? It comes up the hill and then stops about a few hundred feet past that. If we find that the well delivers enough water that we can use it, the goal is first and foremost, and always has been, to get the car wash off of potable water. It's a very expensive use, certainly because water is such a precious commodity in this community and getting more precious by the day. Potable water, it would be wise for us from an airport standpoint, but also from a community standpoint, to do what we can to take to replace potable water, existing uses, with non-potable where possible. So the first target is to get the QTA or the car wash off of potable water, thereby saving about an acre foot if we can. If there's additional water, we can then contemplate using some of that non-potable water in a new terminal building or in another building to provide for non-potable use, such as restrooms, such as irrigation, things that don't require potable water. Certainly, the new terminal building would be a prime candidate because of its location and the fact that nothing is plumbed there yet, so we can plumb where it does have to have a separate plumbing system in the building to be able to use. So I don't know, is that the detail you were looking for, Director?
Yeah, it is. Thanks. By the way, lastly, I'll say that the lease committee is recommending approval of this resolution. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Director Swanee?
Yeah, I was gonna mention to Director Stable that we asked similar questions in the Finance Committee meeting too. So just so he understands, it was vetted a bit. You know, I think we keep saying communication and just how things are presented to us. I for one am used to PowerPoint, but however we get more information across and however that is, so that I think, you know, it's hard to remember what was discussed 3 or 6 months ago, even if we need to attach, you know, an old presentation to the agenda, that maybe would be helpful too. But I know that's something that we're hopefully working on early this quarter, so that we can, you know, make better decisions and have more information at our fingertips. In the Finance Committee meeting, we did talk about, we really didn't know how much water we would get from this. And I just want to confirm too that, and I think we discussed that too, that the wells would be sealed and with the Department of Health. And I go back to a personal experience with a property I owned in Minnesota, so not even in this state, but it was really difficult to get that paperwork at the time. And I know we're working with reputable people and things of that nature, and certainly want to do things appropriately with the county or the state. I think it's a Department of Health thing. So just wanted to state that that was also brought up in the Finance Committee. How much water does do we know? And I think we kind of got into this in the committee meeting, but on reflection, I was wondering, how much does our car wash use right now for water? Do we have a sense? And I mean, does it really change based on the month overall, the usage? Do we have that information?
It depends upon the activity of the car rental operations. So there is some seasonality. We track that based on their water usage work and what we bill to the consortium that operates the QTA. But in total, on average, a year, just about an acre foot.
Acre foot? Okay. And then I think as we look at this too, I think the cost to bring that water, and I know we kind of approach that a little bit, but once we do find out if we got water and how much we have of it, you know what, and I know these are longer term things, but it would kind of be helpful to have an idea as we do make this. I think we all know how important water is regionally to the area, and I applaud staff for moving forward. And I know we were kind of in the queue with the county for quite a while for this. So I think everybody who worked to get us to this point, and we certainly know, I think water is almost like the white gold around here. So hopefully we're able to find some, and, you know, it can make a difference, even impact our financials as far as our reliance on some other, you know, distributors too. So thank you.
If I could speak to the cost, as you asked, for the conveyance system at the meeting in July, there was an estimate for that for both locations. They were both about $350,000, could be, for a conveyance system for each location. But again, it'll be determined upon which one we use and what kind of water is, what the capacity is.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I, you know, I was present, but it's a lot of information to absorb too. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Level.
Thank you. I support this resolution, and I know that we have, since I've been on the board, we have looked at various opportunities that thought might give us some water, and this looks to be the best. We've looked at buying other pieces of property that had wells, but we've spent money on testing those wells before we spent our money, and found that they really did not have many gallons per minute that would justify the money that we would spend. I believe that as community members, it's really important. It's about the money for the airport, that we use government funding judiciously, but I also believe it's about just a moral obligation to the community, that if we have on our property the opportunity to free up potable water for either our own use at the terminal, if we would never have excess, that might never happen, but that we are taking care of the community and the needs. So I totally support this. I will say about Mike Raycheck, many years ago, and I have been working for a long time, but he was one of my clients, and I never, ever had anyone who came and had a complaint about Mike and his operation of granite drilling. So it's nice that he's local. It does provide local jobs, and he's got a heck of an investment here with his equipment and with his facility and his buildings. So I think it's also good that we're employing a local company. So I totally support it.
Thank you very much. Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve resolution number 1812.
So moved.
Okay, Director Leffel beat you to it. Director Curcio, do you want to second this?
Sure, second.
Okay, roll call vote, please. Ms. Adams?
Director Soni,
Yes.
Director Curcio,
Yes.
Director Level,
Yes.
Director Sabah,
Yes.
Chair Miller.
Yes. Thank you very much. Chris, I assume you're going to be helping us out with K3 resolution 1813. You've already talked a little bit about it.
Yes, if you would like, Mike, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
That's
Sorry.
absolutely fine.
Okay.
This is the companion resolution to 1812, 1813. It's a service agreement between the airport district and Bierman Hydrologic. Bierman will provide the professional services to monitor the work of granite drilling and provide for flow testing. Chris, you want to add anything?
No, I think that, and they will also do all of the permitting requirements required by Monterey County Health. And they will do the required analysis of the quality of the water too, not only the quantity, but the quality as well, and look at what the components are. So, and they will be doing the oversight of granite drilling. So with that, I will entertain any other questions.
Very good. Okay, hopefully we can go through this quickly. We'll start on the opposite end. Director Leffel, any questions on this particular item?
I do not. I know that you can't do the whole the aim is to have both of these contracts
Right.
together. And I think Darren's done a good job for us to date, so I have no problem with this resolution.
It's the yin and the yang of water drilling. Okay, Director Sonny.
No, nothing further. Thank you.
Director Curcio.
Just that the lease committee recommends approval, and I have no other questions.
Thank you for reminding me of that. Director Tabo.
Yeah, just a question to Chris. Remind me again, was this a competitive bid or was this a staff selection?
Pearman has been working with us now. This is phase 2, so it was someone that we went out and looked for before, and they're the ones that responded. So this is phase 2 of what they've been doing for us.
Did we invite anybody else to propose on this?
I would have to go back to my notes and look, but my recollection is we did because we've been working with them now for a while.
Yeah, okay. And are there any local firms like is in Monterey County that do this sort of work?
He is local. He is out of Aptos.
He's in Aptos. Anybody in Monterey County?
I do not know. I'm sorry. I don't know all of the consultants in the county.
Okay, I can support the motion, but again, I go back to one, the competitive bidding and the use of local firms, local to Monterey County if at all possible. That's all I have.
Okay, very good. I'll entertain any member of the public wishing to comment on this item. Yes.
Susan?
Is it for me? Yes.
Yeah, do you wish to comment on item K3?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were doing, no, I don't. I mean, I did already. So
Oh,
I-
no, this is a member, we have one member of the public in Zoom, so we're,
Yeah, she's on mute though. She's not.
okay, no problem. We made an effort. I will entertain a motion to approve 1813.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, motion made by Director Sani, seconded by Director Leffel. Roll call, please.
Director Sani,
Yes.
Director Curcio. Director Curcio? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director LaBelle,
yes.
Director Sabo,
Yes.
and Chair Miller.
Yes. Okay, approved unanimously. Thank you. Director Lapierre, resolution 1814.
Resolution 1814 is a resolution amending resolution 1803 and approving the amended operating budget for the airport district for fiscal year 2022. Much of this is related to a very conservative budget that we crafted during budget season, given the uncertainty of the impact of the pandemic on a variety of things at the airport, not the least of which was air service, activities on airport, fuel sales. We feel it's appropriate to offer up an amended budget so that it more accurately reflects the financial performance of the airport district. There are also some expenditures that are associated with this that we feel are appropriate to continue to accomplish what we're accomplishing this year. And there are expenditures that we did not put in the initial budget that was by the board, but they are things that probably should have been in there. Much more rosy picture of the future, which has occurred. So I'll ask Tim Burkholz to walk you through the operating budget and take questions.
Chair Miller, fellow directors, good afternoon. Rather than walking through line by line in the audit, I'm going to just speak to categories. For example, in our commercial aviation revenues, we had originally based our budget on forecasts that were provided from the airlines themselves. They project 8 months into the future, and there were some very optimistic projections, and we followed those projections. Specifically, United was the number one that varied from what service has actually been provided, but there were a few other differences. With the revision of the budget, we've brought the revenues in line with what current activities are occurring. And so we see that we've lowered the budget about 122,000. And again, most of the changes related to United and their flights to Denver and LA and San Francisco. There was also a change with Alaska. They had planned a second San Diego. That has not occurred. It's hoped that it will occur in the spring. The good news is American Airlines came through and actually added flights, and so that offset some of those shortfalls by the other airlines. So that's commercial aviation revenues. Oh, fuel flowage, with the addition of the American flights, we saw a specific uptick in fuel flowage fees, and so we've amended the budget for those fuel fees as well. I'll go section by section. Any questions about commercial aviation?
We'll go quickly through the board. Director Sabo, any questions on what?
I have no questions on the revenue side.
Okay.
I have some questions on the expense side.
We'll hold those. Director Curcio, any questions on the revenue side?
No questions.
Director Sani?
We're just referring to the beginning of the report on K4, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have a sense, and I know this isn't necessarily financial, but how do we compare to other airports of our size for additional flights overall? And this is maybe more air services, but I know because of COVID, we ended up with, more flights, and we're hopefully going to be getting more as well. But smaller airports, I mean, airlines kind of shifted their airlines around. Do we have, I mean, it's not financial, so if it's the wrong place to the chair, I can ask it later too.
No, you've asked the question. Let's go ahead. Do you have a answer for that, Tim?
Actually, and this is just ancillary information, because have friends throughout the state of California. I know that Santa Barbara had some flights and lost them. And San Luis Obispo actually was having several losses of flights or cancellations. It was impacting them heavily. North of the state, of our area, I really don't know. But that's really ancillary information, and the executive director might have some more direct knowledge.
I would concur with what Tim just articulated. We are probably in better shape than many of our, I don't want to call them competitors, but our cohorts, if you will. We've been able to retain and recover much of our flight activities, particularly as it relates to the airlines. And our non-commercial operations, particularly heavy business aircraft, have returned stronger than pre-pandemic periods. So we're seeing a very, very positive trend. Can't say the same thing for some of the other airports that are similar in size in the state.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I just want to let you know, I've actually, yesterday I heard from 3 people that had flown over the holidays and how easy the access was and how wonderful it was and what a great service. And they were able to get to their kids, one in Midwest, I think it was Oklahoma, one in Arizona, the direct flight. So just, I know that I'm hearing good things overall. and so it's wonderful to see, and it's also reflected in our finances, I think, as well as the flights that we offer. So thank you. Thank you.
Jim, the expense side.
The expense side, let me scroll down here real quick. And we had, there were two categories of changes: labor and other types of expenses. And our original budget included 2 staff positions. The senior executive assistant that Denise now occupies effective January 1 or January 3rd, and also the addition of a property specialist. They were both budgeted to start October 1st and November 1st, respectively. And those didn't occur. Fortunately, that has the executive assistant or senior executive assistant position has been filled. So you'll see lower labor expenses in the schedules for both the administrative department and the planning and development department. We look at expenses below labor, primarily in the finance and administration area. We see temporary personnel. Earlier this year, we actually hired some personnel to cover that were filling the position with the hope of being hired. And so we actually didn't have that in our original budget. And so we've increased temporary personnel expenses by about $43,000. Also in finance and administration, there were some additions to marketing, public relations, and air service. I know the executive director is very close to those items. Mike, would you like to talk about those, or I can attempt to?
It's fine, I'll be happy to. Please feel free to add color commentary. In marketing, the intent is to add $50,000 to our marketing budget overall. And as I related to both the Air Service Committee and also the Finance, we'll follow the marketing plan that Mr. Chiplock put forward to the board with some changes. We're going to take our first foray into Spanish-speaking advertising. We're going to enhance our activities during this time of the year when there are significant numbers of major sporting events that are broadcast on telephone or on television. So we'll be in the Super Bowl. We'll be in the Olympics. We'll be in AT&T, which we've always been. This gives us the opportunity to enhance our presence or to capitalize on the opportunities for the first two and enhance our presence. We're going to look at increasing our profile and presence of KSPW, particularly as it relates to news programs, which are the #1 local programs in the region. KSPW's news is well respected, well watched. We're going to enhance our activities there. In terms of public relations, we built in $15,000 for a sponsorship with the new football club, Monterey FC Union Football Club, where we will have a signage presence in the new stadium that's currently being remodeled at CSUMB. They will begin playing in, I believe it's April, and they have 10 home games that will have opportunity to have presence in the stadium during this season. That opportunity will look like banners on fences. So this is really an enhancement of what we have been doing in terms of marketing, an expansion into the Spanish speaking television, Spanish speaking radio, and then jumping into public relations, beginning to forge a relationship with Monterey Football Club Union, which would begin in February next month. So I'm happy to answer any questions about those in terms of, and then we can deal with their service.
Okay, we'll go through for one more round of questions before asking for a motion. So we'll start on this end. Director Leffel.
I had no questions. I'm grateful that expenses have been controlled, and I'm really grateful that the revenue has continued to come in. We were very fortunate that we received 3 separate CARES Act monies. And I think our staff has done a really good job of managing within those dollars while we continue to hold on and build back our client base. So I don't know, I've got hope for the next 6 months, and this still, I'm hoping it's still a little conservative, as seems to be the way our staff likes to operate with money, so which I'm grateful for. So I have no questions.
Thank you. Just because one of the remote directors had made an inquiry about our legal counsel, he has entered the room at 12:39 and is present here to answer any questions you may have. Director Sani, do you have any questions? Or a statement?
About how nice it is to be able to fly the airs, huh? I do have questions, and I think even in the finance committee meetings, we addressed that more was going to be fleshed out about this $90,000, roughly $80,000 to $90,000 spend for the marketing without a strategic document. And I think it was agreed that it would be addressed more. And I don't see more fleshing out about this. Would someone like to confirm? And I don't know, Director Leffel, if you have the same recollection or something different.
I do know that we did ask for some more information, that we were a little divided on our ideas. Yes.
Executive Director Luppier, anything to add for that?
I don't think so. I continue to go back to the marketing plan that was presented by Chidlaw Marketing. And this is consistent with that plan. It's an enhancement of that plan, following the same strategy.
Director Sani, I'm not sure what. So what are you asking for? Something in writing? You're asking for this to be part of a larger planning session with the board?
Yeah, I think we've been missing, and I know that this is my recollection of that meeting too, and it was the second meeting by Mr. Chidlaw. I appreciate, but we even didn't discuss social media and our approaches overall. There was a lot missing. We spent time on commercials and what we were going to advertise on TV, but there was a lot missing, and I believe the board gave a lot of feedback. And I apologize, I don't remember when the meeting was. I think it was like September, the second iteration. I mean, we had a first, and then there was a second, which was, this is not a strategic document. This is just an update where we're at. And we don't have a strategic document for public relations or marketing. And I'm, as one, concerned, and I believe there was feedback that others were as well at the time.
Okay, we can bring that up as a future agenda item or include that in a larger strategic planning session.
Yep, and I will not vote for this because of that, because I don't think the strategic document is in play. And while I support much of the financials, that have been and that we highlighted in the finance meeting even. I don't feel that this document is in play, and I think it's important. It's a big part of our spend. It's important that we really have strategy about how we reach out to the community as a whole. And I think marketing and public relations and air services all kind of go together. So, thank you.
Director Curcio.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I recall this a little differently. These discussions started in air service. And I remember we had some long and hard drawn out discussions about a strategic marketing plan. I recall at the time, and maybe Director Sabo can yay or nay this, because I believe I have this right. We talked after the first meeting with Chidlaw Marketing, we talked about getting a marketing plan back to the full board within 90 days of that first meeting. And I believe the second meeting came well before the deadline of the 90 days. I know that there was some question about the scope and the detail of the marketing plan, but we did. I know we for certain in air service we did talk about in depth about social media, about all of the issues that were raised at the first meeting, and I believe Chidlaw Marketing was present at that air service meeting. So I recall this a little differently. I was not expecting another marketing plan. It might not have been the depth that some of the directors were expecting, but it certainly did, I believe, after the first meeting, and cover the input from the other directors. So that's my recollection.
Anything else?
That's it.
The chair, Director Curcio, what was your recollection of the second meeting? Was it September or October?
I believe it was October, Director Son.
Yeah, I don't remember the timeline on it, but I do specifically remember that we dedicated at least 2 air service committee meetings to this. One was so long, we had to have it a second day. And Chidlaw Marketing was in the room the first day for hours, at least 3. And then I don't know, I believe he could not make the second day when we finished it up. Executive Director, do I have that correct?
That is my recollection, yes, sir. We had,
So again, and I'm not saying that we can't go farther, don't misunderstand me. I'm simply saying that I was not, for one director, was not expecting another document.
And I, as one director, and I believe even in our October meeting, if that is when it was either September or October, there was to be more follow through and there was to be more about social media. I cannot speak to air services because obviously I'm not part of that, but I do know as a full board, and I mean, there's a record that could reflect what was communicated overall. So again, I don't think we have a document that we need for public relations and marketing. And although I appreciate many other things, and I appreciate your reflection, Director Curcio, almost called you chair.
Don't do that.
As well for, your reflection. And I realize air services should even go further into this, but that's, I did believe there was going to be more fleshing out of this.
So then am I understanding correctly then that the Finance Committee is not recommending passing this?
We were split.
Okay. So there was no decision made whether to a split means that you're not making a recommendation.
the recommendation at the finance committee meeting that was more information was going to be detailed, and there isn't more information, so. Sorry, I muted there. I believe my recollection, and this is actually one of the things I'm hopeful that we can get meeting notes in the future, 1 week after a meeting. So we all have more, more memory about what went on and things like that. But my understanding of the finance meeting was that we agreed to move forward with understanding that there was going to be more information detailed at the board meeting. And I, as one director, don't believe there's been more information shared.
Okay. We'll move on. Director Sabo, any?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was obviously a participant in the Air Services Committee meeting, and the discussions about our marketing plan left me a little bit light. I expected there to be more detail. And Chris Chidlaw, who does a fine job of ad placement and marketing in that regard, TV and radio placement, did a very good job on that component. I thought it was missing some things that were a little softer, like newsletters and outreach to the local community and all that. I expected that there was going to be more to come on the marketing plan. It didn't come, and I was informed that the marketing plan was not a plan to be voted up or down or approved by the board, that it was a staff decision, not a board decision. And so I kind of backed away from all that, but I'm still not convinced that we have a complete marketing plan that deals with anything more than some of the sponsorships and some of the TV and radio placements. I have been an advocate of expanding our marketing budget, and $50,000 works for me, and I can support the amendment. But it still is lacking some details of some other marketing methods other than TV placement and sponsorships. We need some other things that should come before the board in a strategic planning session, and that's things like newsletters, social media, yada, yada, yada. And so I can support this motion reluctantly, because we need to be spending money to generate more traffic, particularly local traffic, through the airport here. I had some questions on the expense side, on the property specialist. I was confused. I remember a property specialist being discussed before, and it's been delayed till January 1. Has the property specialist been on board now? Okay, so when does the property specialist actually arrive, and what are they going to do?
We discussed this during budget. The property specialist right now will likely show up in February. Finding candidates for that position was a challenge, to say the least. We advertised for almost 2 months on AAA, ACI, and other locations. Got 0 response. I got 1 finally, and likely that person will be joining us. But that won't be until February. The budget initially called for that position to open up.
What are they supposed to do? Just for my information, the board.
Refresh memory here. Property specialists will take on a lot of the role that we've created now that we have a business license program. They will help administer the leases that I have one person doing now. She is doing a tremendous job, but needs some help in that regard, needs some professional guidance in that regard. And then ultimately, will be active in helping us fill vacancies, both in hangars and on land, on areas that we can develop or redevelop to generate revenues.
Okay, so it's primarily at this point an administrative function, and maybe at some point in the future they become more of a real estate or perform a real estate function. I'm not
Yeah.
I don't have a good term
No,
for it.
Initially, it will be focused on getting our existing house in order, in better order than it is. Addressing the demands of the business license program itself. I want to focus this person on ultimately when we come to the board and ask you to take over the parking lot. I want to focus this person on the parking lot, become our specialist in parking, all things parking, so that when we take it over, we're stood up and ready to take it over. And then you're right, eventually, as we're ready to begin some development, this person will talk.
Okay, the other question I had was, and this may have come before the Air Services Committee, but I don't remember, and it's senior citizen time. The $17,500 add-on for Land Road and Brown. I'm not sure what they're going to do with that additional money.
That's to reflect the contract that the board approved for Air Service Development Consultation. Remember, we brought that, it's a 3-year contract, the board's already approved that. This is to make up for the difference, because we had to budget all of that in the initial budget. So we're just making up the 17.5 in the budget, so that covers the contract.
Okay, that answers my question on the expense side, and I can support the operating budget.
Okay, thank you. Couple quick questions. CARES money, how much do we have left? If you said it, I apologize. I wasn't paying attention to that part.
We have about 8.3 million in the first tranche. We've got, at last look, about 2.1 million in the third tranche. The second tranche, I believe, spent all.
And that was one that was pretty restrictive, so you were moving to, rightly so, to use that money where you could appropriately. Okay, sounds very good, management. This property specialist, I know in the past we've talked about that, one being an employee or two being a contract position, so it sounds like you'll be moving towards the employee
Yes,
position.
yeah, and the board approved that position as part of the budget process.
Okay.
So it will.
Yeah, I seem to recall that. I know we've had these discussions. Sometimes you forget, I mean, I forget, we forget.
I don't know my name.
It sounds super specialized. Hopefully this person can help out with a lot of other collateral duties that we have as a small operation. So I trust your judgment. That's all I have. Other than I will entertain a motion to approve 1813.
So moved.
Second.
I take that back to approve 1814. Yes. Saying first and second.
Oh, now you say it.
I didn't have my glasses fully on when I said 13. So motion made by Director Sabo, seconded by Director Leffel. Ms. Adams, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Sami,
No.
Director Curcio,
Yes.
Director Level,
Yes.
Director Sabo,
Yes.
Chair Miller.
Yes. Okay, passes 4-3. 4-1, excuse me. Boy, it's gonna be a rough year, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Strap your seatbelts on. Okay, let's go. Resolution 1815. Executive Director Lukir, can you help us out?
Resolution 1815 deals with approving an amended capital improvements budget. There's one amendment that we've added to reflect the current contemporary times. I'll let Chris walk you through that very quickly.
Hello there. So yes, the capital budget item is the only change that we've made to the capital budget in this amendment would be to add the project of the Fenton and Keller deck repair, which you approved the contract at the last meeting for their construction to do the construction component. With that, there will be some engineering fees, there'll be the permit fee, and there's a little bit of air conditioning work that needs to be done. So that we are adding, the budget is to $250,000 to do all of those repairs. The amount for Thayer itself was $193,170. So we have added, as I said, the engineering fees, the permit fees, and the ancillary fees to get that work completed. So that is the only amendment that we're requesting in this budget amendment in Resolution 1815.
Okay, thank you very much. We have no members of the public to open this up to. We will hopefully quickly go because we have lunch waiting for us.
Well, I'm glad we can do the people's
That's
business
really
before lunch.
Director Sabo, any?
Yeah, Chris, I apologize, but the shelves are moving faster than the feet here, you know. The resolution 1815 calls for an amendment to the capital budget of is that 20 million or
250,000.
Oh, it says, am I looking at it wrong here? I see 19,735,177. What is that?
Well, if you would, you need to go to the first page under district, halfway through, it says add project 2022-05, 2801 Building A property repairs for the amount of $250,000. So that's the only addition to the capital budget, would be to add that project. So the number you were looking at would be the total capital project.
this is the
with
total
all the
capital.
projects.
Yeah, you got the entire capital budget in front of you. The only thing we're adding in this request is the previously approved work that their construction. That $2 million number is the total.
So this isn't the amendment. This is the total. We're approving the whole capital budget.
No. We're showing you the whole capital budget, but the only change is the addition of the work done by Thayer on that.
And I apologize to my colleagues and the staff, but I'm having trouble with it. What this resolution says. The budget is amended for a total amount of 20 million. Okay. It sounds to me, in the way my brain works, you know, that the amendment is adjusting the previous budget by up or down by a certain amount. In this case, we're adjusting it upwards by some amount, right?
By 240,000.
Right.
250,000.
250,000 to reflect the board's previous approval of the work that their construction will do on decks. So it's simply, you've got the entire budget in front of you. The only change from what you approved in Resolution 1804 is the addition of their work.
Okay, I apologize again for being a little stupid here, but it's the wording here that will exist in posterity. Don't worry, and the extent to which we're amending by a certain amount. I'm not sure why we're not saying that, and add on to the existing budget, up or down. But the idea of saying it is amended for a total amount of $20 million sounds like we added $20 million to it, but that's in my mind. I can support the resolution or the Fenton Keller 250K. I don't have a problem with that. I'm having a little trouble. Lawyer, where's the lawyer? Oh, he's actually here. He landed safely. I heard the squeak. Am I the only one here that's having a problem with this wording? Is you're really a good wordsmith there.
So
Do you understand what I'm having a problem with?
I do, and this gets to
the crux of many amendments, which is, do we just give you the amendment or do we give you the whole thing and just highlight what the amendment is? And in this one, they give you the whole thing, there's a highlighting the amendment. And there's always this confusion of, well, okay, are you adding that much, or is that the total with the amendment included? Is that?
Yeah, and and then there's no fault on the staff, you know, I mean, but this is kind of a legal thing, so this will exist in posterity, you know, what were you guys thinking at the time? I'd like it to be a little more clear, is there any way we could clarify this with your wordsmith?
Sure, although I think that when I read it, it's plain to me that you're just adding that amount. Now, having said that,
You're whipping out your law school credentials again, aren't you?
well, again, having said that, can we make it, you know, more, I think there's always improvement to be made in every document, right? Even, I can't tell you the documents I've pulled out that I have written, that I have red pen all over them because, you know, I just changed them all, you know, but I do think it's I think it's readily apparent what we're doing. However, if there is some confusion, we can always try and clarify and make some additional.
Well, it's clear to you and it's clear to everybody else. I don't want to hold up the whole train in the station here, you know, but it just was, to me, a little clumsy on the wording. I can support the motion as written.
Thank you. Director Curcio, anything on resolution 1815?
Just a question. I did step out for a minute. If this has been answered, I apologize. Is the Finance Committee recommending approval on this?
Very good question.
Yes.
I have no further questions, Mr. Chair.
Director Sani? Thank you, Director Curcio. Director Sani, any questions?
Yeah, it's not a question, it's more, I think it would be, and I don't think we discussed this in the Finance Committee, but I think it would be helpful if we would put the COVID funds, I'm trying to show, I mean, we've got it in our packet. It's hard to see, I'm sorry. But the three different grants that we've been given, I think it would be helpful to show how much remains. And I was trying to do that right now.
It's in the finance department's report.
It should show
Okay.
on those schedules, the balance available.
Right. And I'm just wondering if it wouldn't be good to have that reflected here. I mean, if we can't, it's fine. It would, I went and figured out how much we have, and I know we've got this document. That
Are
the
you
camera won't get.
are you speaking of a grand total or just total by grant?
Yeah,
the
grant total we're talking about the capital budget. I think it might, I know it was helpful to me I just went and, you know, figured out the numbers. But I mean, it can be in the future too. And I know we've got it in this document, but again, we're just trying to disseminate information in a better way. I think we've got, let's see, we've got about 9 million on the first, and then 3,275,000 left on the COVID response and relief. Is that right? So about 15 million. Does that sound about right?
Well, that's that date, but that would be hard because it's not going to be consistent with the date. I mean, that's the report as of, Tim, what, the November?
November, yeah. We've submitted since.
Okay, so.
But you're asking for this to be included in the capital budget?
Okay, if it doesn't make sense, that's fine. I just, as a board member, it was helpful for me to understand what we had in another fund overall. So I'll leave it, I'll let it be. I just think it is our overall financial picture to some extent. And it was something that I didn't bring up in the Finance Committee. Doesn't need to be in the capital budget. That's fine. And
yeah, this is, well, it wouldn't be appropriate for it to be in the capital improvement program budget. At least that's my take, but I'm not on the Finance Committee.
okay, well, we've also got, you know, our capital budget plans and estimated totals and things like that. So it just seems like there could be one more column for the COVID funds and what was spent year to date, and I realize most of that came out of our operating amounts. So I'll leave it.
Okay, I'm sure that is recorded somewhere.
It is.
Okay, very good. Okay, anything else?
Not for me, no. And the finance committee did, and that was already confirmed for Director Curcio. They did move to support this.
Okay, thank you. Director Level.
No, I support this. Something has to be done. It's a safety issue. So
Yeah.
sooner is better than later.
No, and I understand what Director Sabo is saying. I read it and it was clear to me, but it just depends on.
You went to Golden State University.
Yeah, I went to a California college, so I'm used to that. Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve 1815.
So moved.
Director Leffel beat you again. It's that cyber leg, Director Curcio, but I will put you down as a second if you don't mind.
That's fine.
Okay, roll call please, Ms. Adams.
Director Sani,
Yes.
Director Curcio,
Yes.
Director Level,
Yes.
Director Sabo,
Yes.
Chair Miller.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Why don't we take a quick 5-minute break and we will be back in session at 1:17. Thank you. Trevor, in closing.
What's our plan? Are we going to go? through
Our
all of that?
plan is right now, we are going to go to board and committee reports, item number L on your agenda. The time is 1:26. So does any member of the board, and I'll just go down, do you have any questions about staff reports? Director Level. Director Sani, any questions about staff report?
So we're doing all of the committee or staff reports. So we're looking at our packet, just confirming.
We are not doing the committee reports at this time. These are the reports that staff generates from finance, from operations, from fire, from police, from noise.
Okay.
Except for noise, if we will take that in air service if you have some questions there.
Okay. Just the one staff report for operations department. Could we have an update on the Virus Geeks and the COVID testing and kind of how that went? And I know it was discussed a little bit, but people are getting tests, or are they still having problems with that? And how many people are going through the airport at this point?
We do not track how many or when people get their tests, so the only information we have is tangential. I know my wife tested and it took 7 days to get the responses, and that's been a week ago. They have reduced the number of people by going to a reservation system here rather than an open door policy. That seems to be helping that, along with our traffic has waned a bit, as it typically does this time of year. So we're managing through it pretty well. I think the next peak for us will be spring break, and that may be problematic for us if the spike continues to be as strong as it is.
Okay. I do know that there were a lot of people that were confused, and I think, I believe I had requested just kind of an overview, but we work with we provide the space, and the chamber and Virus Geeks are actually doing all the process and everything related to it. Is that
That's
accurate?
correct. We are simply the host location. We have no other responsibilities or ties to it beyond being the host location.
Okay.
We have donated that space. We're not collecting a fee.
We do not make money. No, we have donated the space in the name of being the community citizens.
And we have received press coverage on it as well. It's very favorable.
And we,
The fire department keeps
Go ahead.
working on it. Where's the fire department involved with that?
In Myers Speaks, they're not. I don't know what they're intimating.
Well, they were talking about how many, people got vaccinated or got tested and all that sort of thing. They were reporting.
They do some vaccination clinics, fire department does, and I assume they do some testing clinics too, but I don't know that, to be honest. Myers Speaks itself is independent.
Director Sonny, do you have anything further?
Ms. Morello, did you have something or? you're-
I was just going to add, there is a summary on the top of the planning department's report.
Mhm. I just wanted to highlight it for the public because it had been brought up to me. And it was, it was like, you guys aren't doing the testing and getting things through. So I wanted to be sure. I think the other thing is the police report. We had 75 door and gate alarms. That seemed quite high. Was that Christmas? Just the holidays or I don't know. That seemed high to me. But
Normal.
is it that high?
If someone keeps the door open too long, every door is on a timer, if it doesn't close, the alarm goes off. It's variable. I wouldn't consider that to be important. It's probably a little higher.
Is that the criminal only or?
Yes.
That's all I heard.
Lisa, we've had up to 400 and some with sometimes during the that we had.
Okay, I guess I don't remember that or haven't been around for that, so.
Before your time, we used to.
That would be busy. That would keep them very busy. It's a lot. Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. Director Curcio, anything?
No questions of staff.
Director Sabo.
On the taxi report, I noticed we have a substantial decline in taxi trips. Part of it may be due to somewhat of a decline in air traffic, but now I understood from one of the other reports that maybe it's finance, that Salinas Taxi is maybe not paying their bills and they have to do.
Central Coast.
Oh, is it Central Coast?
Yeah.
Oh, Salinas is the alternative. Anyhow, to me, taxis are still an important thing. Are we managing that? And do we know any reason why there's such a slump in taxi trips?
Can't address the second part of your question. Don't know the answer to that, other than our traffic is down a little bit. But, and I think you could probably intimate that the fact that starting people are just not really driving somebody else's vehicle. Is that a proximity thing?
Well, I noticed that the TNCs, they were right up there.
Could I say the TNCs are November and the taxis are December, so they're different months, so you can't compare them.
Oh. All right.
Okay.
Go figure. Okay.
Yeah. But in terms of Central Coast Cab, we are positioning ourselves to terminate their agreement with the as soon as Salinas Yellow Cab can stand up enough cab, we'll take action with Central Coast.
Okay. So we would only have one cab company here? Is it two?
We also have Marina Cab. I think their fleet is one.
Yeah. Do we need to maybe go back to franchise agreement again?
No, I don't think that's warranted, Director. The RTA is doing a good job of administering this. They're probably going to take the same action we do with Central Coast. It's a long, drawn-out story, but the short of it is the owner of Salinas Cab passed away. The management of Salinas Cab has, I guess you could call it, matriculated to a family member in the LA Basin area, and there's no attention to detail there. and no financial wherewithal.
Well, my support is for continuing to make sure that our customers have taxis out there rather than just totally rely on Ubers and Lyfts.
Appreciate that.
So,
That's why we've reached out to City Shuttle Cap to see if they can back.
all right, thank you.
I was a little confused on what you said. You said somebody that ran Salinas Cab passed away?
No, Wayne died.
Except for-
Wayne died.
Wayne guy that,
Yeah, Wayne died.
I did. See, I did say Salinas. My editor in chief has said I did say Salinas. So I did say mistake.
oh, so it's Central Coast,
Central
the
Coast.
owner passed away, that we, okay. Well, I'm sorry for his passing. Okay, any other questions, Director Siegel?
No.
Okay, thank you. Standing committee, budgets and finance, who is going to give that report? Please, Director Sonny, can you report out for budget and finance?
I don't have the meeting in front of me. I think we discussed like 7 different things. 4 of the things were in front of this body, both of the wells, as well as the capital budget and the, what we voted on for the remaining budget for this year.
Are you reporting out on the December or January meeting?
I believe I'm reporting on the January meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that was, I think those were the big items that we discussed in that meeting. And again, we agreed to move everything forward except for, well, the main budget. We had, that's already been recapped for this board. So anything else? And I think there was agreement that the staff work to get us to this point and to keep everything going amidst COVID. And even, as we get back into some uncertainty with COVID, there was a lot of appreciation from the committee for all the work that's been done, in keeping everything up to date. And the CARES dollars were also discussed, and it wasn't just CARES, it's the 3 grants that we received. So just kind of recap that as well.
We did also talk about the Delray Oaks true up,
Yeah, we did.
the police department true up. And I think we left it that, is it Robert or Roberto and Tim are attempting to get together to finalize it. Has there been any movement?
Pretty much had agreement at that level. It was at that the city of Delray Oaks overcharged us $8,000 in total. That needs, I think that during that meeting, we said that report out was going to go to the city of Delray Oaks finance committee. I don't know that that's happened yet. It may have. But nothing more for us to do.
Does that have something to do with pension or something like that? Pension money?
UAL.
Pensions were part of the discussion, but not part of that dollar. They were, the city, the agreement doesn't call for them to charge us for UAL. They had to charge us for that. So Kim was able to capture that and roll it back through.
Is it a discussion?
Oh, there's gonna ultimately be discussion about that at the city manager level. Because I know the city of Delray Oaks will come back to us and ask for us to help pay their UAL. That's not what was contemplated in the contract, not what was discussed in the negotiations, and certainly I will bring that back to you.
Okay, very good. Any questions for finance? Okay, hearing none. Air Service and Marketing Directors Curcio and Sabo. Who's going to give the report?
Gary.
Gary? Director.
I'm eating my clam chowder.
If that's what Director Sabler wishes, my pleasure to give this report, and enjoy your chowder. The executive director shared with us that the seat capacity had been reduced by the airlines by about 30% for the month of December and January. He said that's typical of what happens within the industry, and indicated that this capacity should return to Monterey starting in February. The executive director also shared with our committee that there was a new airline nearing announcement for new service in Monterey. The concern that they had was that, and they would be coming in, the Monterey Jet Center would be handling the deplaning of this flight. And the airline was concerned that there was no handicap bridge that was available to that they could furnish to have that work. And obviously that without that, it doesn't work. So the executive director went out and looked, and they are available to be purchased for about $17,000. And the airport, the carrier had asked, would we consider purchasing that piece of equipment? And the executive director recommended that, yes, we would be willing to purchase it up front, but then we would lease it back to the airline. And we would be made whole after the first year for the reimbursement of the $17,000. So executive director, help me with this. I'm not sure how we left that.
I think we left it right there. I was going to go back to the airline and propose that to them. I have done that. They've come back and asked for a deeper dive into overall rates and charges. I think that's a good sign, but I don't have anything firm to report.
Okay. The other thing the executive director shared with us, I was kind of excited about it. And, Director Sabo, not so much, but that is that the staff has been working on a program to replace the old comment cards that we've been using for so many years with a new system that would signage would be posted in 6 different areas of the terminal, and there would be a Q code on there. And if the flyer or customer wanted to make a comment of any kind, they just flash the Q card and do it via their cell phone. And I kind of liked it a lot. And I thought, wow, we might actually end up getting more comments. And obviously we know that all the restaurants are using that technology these days, and it's relatively simple once you get the hang of it. Director Sabo had a concern, and I will let him address that, me. And he had an alternative in mind. And I believe that we talked about looking at Director Sabo's alternative, which again, I'm going to let him speak to. And maybe that we would try both of these systems to see which worked best. That the other thing was there was no noise complaints. Shocking. Anyway, that's my part of the report. And Director Sabo, go ahead and fill them in.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. I think you covered it pretty well. And that is right regarding the feedback mechanisms for customer comments and all that. The suggestion had with the scanning and filling out a survey or doing something with cell phone. I thought that was a good idea, but it wasn't a complete idea because many of our folks over the age of 55 really aren't all that adept or comfortable with the scanning things and scanning barcodes and stuff like that. Director Miller and I at the Reno conference saw some tablet type things were up on a stand you could put in the bathroom, and it had smiley face and frowny face and all that. And it was like instant feedback that was where they also accumulated data, give you information on what was going on with the customers that used the facilities, maybe in the baggage claim area and all that. There was a way to expand upon the QR codes and to get even more feedback about how we're doing, because personally I felt that was an important component. So there was a firm that I guess Mike was going to maybe reach out a little bit to it and talk with them a little bit. I raised, I guess, the executive director indicated, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you had some reduced expectations for employments, deployments, because of the AT&T's kind of diminished attractiveness.
Yeah.
Help me with this a little bit.
Yeah, we think that, and I verified this with Matt right yesterday, because of the reduced field at AT&T in the tournament, many of the major players, the big names, are going to another tournament where they get 7-figure appearance fees. The field, the golfing field will be less than some. We'll still have we'll have as many things. We'll still have the celebrities, but in checking with Matt, Jackson, their reservations are off significantly for this year, and I think our traffic will be off as well.
Yeah. It will affect us.
I think so.
Okay. And I asked about counting the JSX employments and what their traffic was, and I think you indicated that was really hard to come by.
No, I indicated I agreed with you that we should be adding that.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a little bit hard to get.
All right. I apologize if I got it. And then I have questions, as I have done before, getting a little more detail on cancellations and delays. You know, where are they inbound cancellations, inbound delays, are they outbound? What's going on? You know, and with a little more detail, so that we know and can talk with our customer base when even those of us who get out in the communities, they go, I never use Monterey, they cancel all the time. Well, I'd like to know as that board member, you know, whether it's because American is on time coming into Monterey, or they're canceling flights coming in. We don't know all there is to know about all that. And so we had a discussion about it. I have recommended to the executive director a Flight Aware program, which you pay for, but they give you pretty much real time or very new information about delays and cancellations coming in. I think it's important for us to know if our flights are being canceled, delayed, diverted, and all that, because I get asked a lot of questions about that. So anyhow, that's the only amendments that I would add to Gary's rather cogent remarks.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the Air Service Marketing Committee? Seeing none, Airport Property Development and Leases, Director Curcio, do you want to give that report, please?
I basically think we've pretty much covered everything that we did at the meeting in all of the items that we passed today pertaining to the wells, et cetera. I don't know of any. Carl, if you have anything else, I can't think of anything that we haven't covered.
Well, there were two other items we did discuss in some detail. One being the lease assignment or reassignment for Sky Park South.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, right.
We're not at that point now, right?
No, the intention is to bring that back to the meeting in February. There is an agreement in principle to sell property to the owner, one that we know now. But we're not at that point yet. Just started to get some financial information from the proposed new owner yesterday.
And that will be chaired, the plan is that will be chaired with the board in the February meeting when we will be asked to make the decision if we are going to allow the lease to switch over. Director Sani, you had some questions in that area. What exactly would you like to know?
I think I had my questions answered.
Okay, sounds good. And the other one was with Fonza Motors, Forza Motors, a excellent, probably one of the better mechanics. If you happen to be lucky enough to own a Ferrari, you want this guy working on it, but not from a business standpoint. That's not his focus. So he has come to a pretty good solution, and that is the business is going to be sold to a company that specializes in high-end restoration and repairs. Anything you can add to that?
The only thing I will say is, as a tag on Director Curcio, through some personal contacts, did some research, and we're going to proceed with a touch bit of caution.
Okay, really?
But I don't think it's an ordinance. I don't think there's a problem there. I just don't think they're all that in a bag of chips as they were going.
Okay. Okay, well, more to come at a future date. And that's all we have to publicly report out of that committee. And that's all I have. Any questions for the lease committee? Okay, hearing none, we did not have a local jurisdiction liaison meeting. Hopefully we have one in the upcoming year when things settle down a bit. Local Agency Formation Commission, Director Leffel. Do you guys even meet? Because I haven't heard anything in the news about LAFCO lately.
We actually anticipate that we will have a reconsideration of our position that will come in sometime in the next 2 weeks. And we believe that when it comes in, then staff will work with the staff of the Water Management District to develop whatever information they need for staff reports. And it has to be based on new information that has not been presented here today before we made our other determination. So the ball is in the court of the Water Management District to come up with new information that would convince us that we should reconsider it. And so we're just kind of in a holding pattern on that. There is also a new healthcare district that looks like they're pushing through the legislature really fast. And it's to take over the old Watsonville Hospital. And they closed their doors and laid off, I don't know, close to 1,000 people. So what this will do is actually allow the Santa Cruz LAFCO will take the lead on it because the property is in Watsonville. But this really impacts a lot of people in North Monterey County, particularly.
There is a little bit of the district will extend into Power, which is part of Monterey County,
Right.
but because like 90–80% of it is in Santa Cruz County.
And the physical property, the
Building
building is in
itself.
Watsonville. So we haven't seen anything more on that. I imagine we'll see quite a bit of that. Our next meeting is January the 28th, and that's where we'll learn what's going on with all of this, so.
And you'd already reported out on the vote that was taken, I believe.
I did at the prior.
Okay, no need.
Report it out on one end and you're.
Reported out on the vote that
5-2.
LAFCO had taken 5-2 on the Monterey Water Management District request to take over water operation in Catlin. But I have a question. Okay, I was going to open it up so you can start.
Oh, good, thank you. I guess LAFCO has to decide, you may have put up on this before, LAFCO has to decide on our Keller property and maybe one other piece of property as to whether or not we can take them away from the city and incorporate it in the airport district. I'm a little fuzzy on what I'm saying.
The annexation.
Yeah. Have they ruled, are they going to rule, or where are we on all of it?
Because, you want to just take it?
Sure, we have.
We haven't seen it at LAFCO yet.
Oh, okay.
It hasn't-
Oh, that's already got it.
Yeah, it hasn't gone to LAFCO because of the legal matter between the city and the airport district. The city has stopped communicating with us. We had reached what I thought was going to be an amicable agreement with Tim and Country. And the lawsuit came about, the city shut the doors, they're not talking to us right now.
They're having a snit. Okay, all right.
But yeah.
So there's more to come on this.
There's more to come.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for LAFCO?
Gary has his hand up.
Yes, Director Curcio.
Yeah, I don't have a question, but I do have a comment to make, and Director Luffel hasn't said anything about this. I'm going to keep it as brief as I can. But Director Luffel, who is Commissioner Luffel on the LAFCO board, was attacked by Public Water Now for her supposed views on this topic. And they went so far as to take ads out on the Coast Weekly and social media ads, trying to recall Commissioner Luffel for her position. And it was full of lies, innuendos. It was complete bunk. And so therefore, I mean, I couldn't pass. I had to say something. I did not speak as a member of the airport board. I spoke as a CalAm customer and a resident of the district, and made the record very clear that the information that they put in their ad was absolutely incorrect. The one item that they insisted on that Commissioner Luffel was in talking about the property tax impact to the airport, which was absolutely incorrect. Just a complete fabrication. And where she was speaking is on the overall impact of the property tax portion. So I believe myself and others set the record straight, but she was attacked and it was completely bogus. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Director Curcio. Anybody else wishing to comment on LAFCO? Well, I'm certainly sorry that you're going through that. I'm not sure why they singled you out, since the vote was overwhelmingly opposed to moving forward. But
According to Ms. Prislock on Next Door, I'm the only one that is elected that is within their sphere. And so that's why they have, that she's probably put on social media if they can do anything to raise any amount of money to get rid of me. So.
let's hope that doesn't happen. Okay, Regional Taxi Authority, they have you down. They have Director Leffel, they have you down, but I believe that was passed off to Director Curcio, right?
You just did that, yes, but this was prior to you making your new appointments.
I was under the impression that was,
No, Gary appointed me.
okay, well, I misunderstood. Was there a meeting at all?
No, there will not be a meeting until July.
Okay, thank you.
What are the,
Yes,
what is RTA doing about? So that's actually,
Central Coast.
okay, or Central Coast, you know, you said the RTA is having the same problems that they'll probably deal with it, but if they're not meeting till July, where are we?
I think you may have framed that slightly off of what I meant it to.
Okay,
Once we take our action against Central Coast Cab, that then gives the RTA the ability to look at their overall permit. So they may well be right behind us after we take on. That's what I intended to say. I'm sorry if that was, if I said it confusing.
So, Director Sable, what will more than likely happen is Central Coast Cab is provided 2 handicap vehicles by MST. They're free.
yeah,
And if you see them rolling around, that's what they're driving the most, are those vehicles. And they do a lot of the pickups with senior citizens who need to go to doctor's appointments and things. So RTA can do 2 things. They can sanction them and they can take back those handicap vehicles.
okay.
I'm not sure how they can survive without having publicly funded, paid for vehicles. So I'm gonna actually call Carl this week. It's on my list of things to do, Carl Sidori, and just talk to him about it. And our staff needs to sit down with his RTA person to take care of it. There was one other thing that popped up on next door, and it was, I want to say it's Selena's cab, but there was a young man, I think he's in his early 40s, who is, he has grand mal seizures, and he had a doctor's appointment in Selena's, and it was, I'm going to say like 1001 South Main Street. But what he gave them as an address was 1001 North Main Street. So when they got there, he said, no, this isn't the right place. And the driver said, this is where you're supposed to get out. He said, no, this is not where I come for my appointment. The driver said, get out. And he said, I'm not supposed to be here. The driver said, too bad, I'll be back in an hour. And he left him there. And the guy called his mother, who is in Carmel, who works in, I think, in Carmel. She had no way of going and leaving her position where she works to go get him. And the driver did come back for him in an hour, but she has elevated that complaint to everybody. So I put her in contact with Carl Sidori to take it to him. So I think there's, you know, we go through a period where there just doesn't seem to be anything, and then all of a sudden it just all erupts. So, but that one was pretty egregious. I can't imagine you just put somebody out on a corner when they tell you that's not where it's supposed to be.
Have we had any complaints here at the airport about Central Coast?
I don't recall any. Our complaint is lack of payment. We have, I don't, Chris, are you aware of any complaints from customers?
No. We have not heard of any.
We have what, a hotline where people complain about that? Or how does that work? If they have a problem with their taxis or Uber.
The complaints flow the same way any other complaint would flow, either through the comment card, which we don't typically get because that's outside of the building. Or we'll get calls from
Okay. Thank you. Transportation Agency Board for Monterey County Director.
They met on December 1st. Really wasn't too much activity because of holidays and all that, but a lot of discussion about what they're going to support at the federal and state level regarding legislation. TMC is really supporting in a strong way alternative fuels, and which I'm not sure what that means, alternative fuel, and also electric cars, electric vehicles. You're also providing a lot of support for transit MST in particular, which is no surprise, and they're supporting projects in a strong way that deal with climate change impacts. And these are all legislative priorities. And of course, real funding, that we got a major investment in the Salinas rail connection out there. The federal lobbyists had a lot to say about the impact of the infrastructure funding, and they're very hopeful that TAMC, as well as the state, gets a large piece of improvement money. Approved a regional transportation improvement program, which again includes substantial work on design for the Highway 68 corridor and our Highway 68. And they approved funding for a wayfinding signs throughout the county. I have no idea, but this was like free money, to, I guess, tell you how to get to Greenfield or something. I'm not real clear. But there's a lot of money dedicated to that. And the first stage of the railroad station project in Salinas is now completed, and they're ready to move on to stage 2. That project keep moving forward with vigor. So eventually we're going to have an opportunity to get all the way maybe to Sacramento by boarding a train here. So it might take a couple of transfers, but you'll get there. That's about it. Nothing really to do with the airport.
Okay. Any questions of TAMC? Hearing none. Special District Association, we had a Zoom meeting last night. Our soon to be retired tax assessor spoke. He started with the district in 1986. At that time, all the properties in Monterey County had an evaluation of $11 billion with B. Now it's valued at $74 billion. And he anticipates that it will go up over 75 billion next year, with an increase of about 6.5%. He says he's being conservative with that number. Look for your property tax to go up 2% due to inflation. And other than that, he suggested for those districts that are super dependent on revenue, like where my son works at Monterey Regional Fire Department, they actually keep a very, very close eye on properties when they change hands, when they feel they're not getting enough money, because that's their only source of revenue. Like 99% of their revenue, they're just so dependent on it. Anything to add, Director Lincoln?
No, it was a good presentation. It might even be good just to have it for the full board and for the staff to hear, since we do get a small slice of that. It was interesting, I think, what he said 1/3 of it came from the CPI, from inflation. 1/3 came from transfers, and then they basically pour through all of the transfers of the year and figure out what the dollar amounts are. And that's how he does his estimation, which is how he got to 6.5%. So I thought that was kind of interesting because we used to ask Mike Miller, how do you get to that number? And I never was very clear on it. So anyway, now we know.
Yes.
But 6.5, he said it could go as high as 7, and they will look at it in July, so.
Yeah, probably be interesting. I mean, it's been a long time since the board has dealt with that little pocket of money. We're getting about, what, 100, it started at 150, has it gone up? Or?
Now, it varies 125, somewhere there. Sometimes it's a little lower. And it's kind of Houdini work to figure out exactly how they come up with that number.
Well, an auditor does that number because he also then looks at the, what's the other tax? The
Possessory interest
the
tax.
possessory interest tax. So, and Carl brought that up last night, and while we're sitting here this morning, I got 2 text messages from Steve Benini asking for Carl's number. So I'm guessing he wants to chat with you about that.
I'm hoping about my personal problem. Like that.
Oh, maybe that was it.
I mean, what, the guy that was at the special district meeting last night spoke, was that same one that kind of made a determination on our allocation for taxes?
No, that was Mike Miller, the auditor, and this is Steve Benini, the assessor.
Oh, okay. So he doesn't have anything to do with determining our amount of our.
No, not really.
But it is, and as he pointed out,
It's
there's
all-
3 of them. There's the tax collector, the assessor, and the auditor.
Yeah.
And they all have a hand in determining taxes. He did talk about Prop 19 and the pitfalls that could have a negative impact on future growth in property tax. What I found interesting is that resident values have soared where commercial properties have decreased because of COVID, including some businesses closing down or not being as profitable as they once were. So, and they're obligated to reassess properties should they do a downward drift. But it wouldn't be a bad program if we have a quiet agenda. Would be welcome today. Let's see, any questions for Director Leffel? Director Leffel was also reinstated as president this year of Monterey County Special District, so 2 years in a row, which has been customary. And she also will be taking over the lead report. Anything you want to talk about legislative days or balls out there?
No, I'll bring it back next month.
So that's in May or
May
April? In May.
21st.
So I haven't attended those, but the people that have get a lot out of it.
Yeah, excellent. As long as they don't do them virtually.
Okay, Association of Bay Area Governments, Executive Director Lapierre, anything to report?
A couple of things. One, we got the first report out on the work plan for the Sustainable Communities Initiative. Much more to come on that. But probably the most important part is the completion of the public hearing and vote by the voting members of the board on the regional housing needs analysis. That goes. There was action on the part of staff that submitted at board direction information to the state. The state kicked that information back and said, we want you to look at it this way. The short of it is the communities, particularly those along the coast will be asked to infill or to promote infill of properties for affordable housing. And while that's always happened, this action by the state, should they sustain it, will require communities like Monterey, and probably the most poignant example is Capitola, to dramatically increase the amount of infill affordable housing. Capitola, for instance, is about 2 miles square, and they're going to be asked to promote over 1,100 new housing units for affordable living.
Within their existing property lines.
Ooh,
Boundary lines. I don't see how that's.
They irritated somebody, didn't they?
well, quite frankly, every community, particularly those along the coast, will get hit pretty significantly with this. The city of Monterey will have over 4,000 units they have to try to foster. And there was a lot of discussion from some of the representatives of the coastal communities about unfunded mandates on the part of the state and listening to the communities and their inability to make these things happen. Water was not an issue in the state's determination, was not a discussion topic. So even if you don't have water, you still have a state obligation associated with it. So it's a lot of angst, and you're going to hear a lot more about it from these communities. I know Ed Smith represented the city of Monterey, and he was in Ed Smith's way quite vocal about what this will do to the city of Monterey. So it's a little bit of the state trying a blanket approach to addressing the housing needs without paying attention to the local concerns, the local ability. Right. Those are the two things that we reported out.
Well, thank you. And thank you for sitting on this committee for last year. I think we've only been on it for about 1 year, haven't we?
Yeah, about a year and a half, something like that.
You've done a yeoman's job, and you're passing the baton off to Director Sonic. So, but thank you for your involvement. Okay, any questions on ANBAG? Director Sonic, you have your hand up.
Yeah. Mike, thank you. And I look forward to just talking to you, for a handoff and getting to where things are at. And I've already been on their website and things. My question, Capitola, I know one of the big things in this region is obviously the Surplus Land Act and that, affordable housing. Capitola doesn't have anything like that, do they?
No, that was part of their concern, was they don't have the ability in land mass alone to address the state requirement.
Yeah, and I know I have talked to, other officials about, unfunded and no water, so shall be interesting. And even our roads, you're adding a lot more, just overall transportation network works obviously, so shall be interesting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move into closed session. Is it the desire of the people present here to take a break?
Before we move into closed session, Alex, in regards to all of the committees and standing.
Yes.
Go ahead. I think what was demonstrated today with the resolutions that we had to deal with, and some that we will be dealing with maybe in closed session here, is that the committees are doing a good job of hearing information from the staff or outside parties. Unfortunately, I don't think the board is getting a good take on what went on in those meetings when we have subjects that come up, particularly, resolutions or items that we should be apprised of. And I suggest that at least on resolution where the committee, whether it be finance or lease or whatever, that at least it be a standard practice that if the lease committee heard it, if the finance committee heard it, they talk about what deliberations there were on those subjects, so that we as a board have the benefit of their committee meetings because they are advisory to the board. And just making a statement, the lease committee saw it isn't good enough for me. I'd like to know more from what.
Yeah, and
I'm just talking about a good concept rather than some kind of a big rule.
And I'll take responsibility for not having somebody from the lease committee comment on those two items. We've done that in the past where we've had committee members respond and nothing else, ask them if, like Director Curcio did several times today, if that particular committee approved of what this item was. And that hopefully that modeling sunk in with me, and I'll remember to do it next time.
And that it's not to be critical of anybody. I just want to make maximum value out of the committees. And even some of the assignments, like if I have something to say about this because I learned it at TAMSI or something, I have to volunteer, share that without having to be asked for it. I think it might be a matter for adopting into our protocol how we address subjects.
Well, feel free to remind me if I'm here and you would like to hear from a committee. If I happen to forget to do that, we'll be happy to have a committee member speak to it. Because staff has been doing, at least in my experience, an excellent job of bringing these things to us to discuss and hammer out before we get to this point. And that seems to be a good relationship, like Director Sabo said. Okay, very
We're
good.
gonna put you on probation.
Yes,
Short leash.
Yeah, I'd be happy to step aside. Quick break, then we come back. What do you say? Why don't we return to closed session at 2:30?
Are we back?
Welcome, we are back into open session. The time is 4:32 p.m. and we are still here on January 19th. Still here. We didn't break the midnight hour yet. We have nothing to report out of closed session other than item number M3 is being continued until Friday, January 21st at 9 a.m. And that will be a closed session item at that time. So nothing to report out of closed session. Pending request for future agenda items. Any member of the board wish to make a recommendation for an item?
I do.
Director Sable, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to add a future agenda, either special meeting or board meeting. Update, discussion of updates to our existing governance manual.
Yeah, we did talk about doing an update there. So does somebody want to concur with that?
I'll second.
Okay, so we'll put that on for governance manual review and possible updates. And that's going to be in your your court
Sure.
to come up with.
Well, I think all of us might have some suggestions, or many of us. Well,
But digging up that document, getting it to us, and then firstly, probably a review to make sure there's been no changes in the law on something we're doing would be probably critical. Okay, Director Curcio, do you have anything for future agenda?
I do not.
Directors, Sani, do you have anything for future agenda?
I do. I think we discussed in the meeting a cadence document. I'd like a meeting cadence document. So where, who is attending outside meetings and where, both nonprofits as well as regional government entities. That was discussed today in our meeting. So do we need to get a second if there's concurrence for just a discussion about that and either a document created or
I'll second.
Okay.
I'll second.
Not sure exactly what you're looking for, but maybe you can communicate with staff on that. What is it you're exactly looking for?
It's just a document that shows what date, what time, who's going, that kind of thing. It's called a cadence, meeting cadence document. I'll be happy to send you a sample. You can do a Google.
I think I realize now what you meant, but you also said nonprofits and stuff, so
Well, boards that we represent, boards that we're on, at least staff, executive staff that's on boards too. It'd be good to understand our outreach to the community is what I'm looking for with that.
but it would only be in our role as a
yes,
as an airport director. I certainly don't want to see everything that Director Leffel is.
I don't know if we have enough paper for that. At least we could. So
Just in relationship to our role here on the airport.
yes, yeah. So I mean, today we discussed people attending meetings, and if any of our executive staff attends, I think that would be helpful. But I absolutely, our personal does not need
We'll
to
have that put together, or we will discuss it at some future point if you could generate that document or discuss it. We'll talk. Are you
happy? Yep.
Mary Ann, Director Leffel concurred.
No, Gary.
Oh, Gary did.
Gary.
Director Curcio did. Okay.
I've got two other things.
Okay, go ahead.
I find our emails challenging for many board members, myself included, and I'd like staff to look at iPad considerations for us. We've upgraded our technology in the room, and I think it might really facilitate communication for all of us. Or if we want another format, I'm open, but I know other government entities, they often will use iPads for communication. I think that would really be helpful for all of us as we work through our communication challenges. So, and I think it's pretty reasonable when, considering we put about 30,000 into the board meeting, I would assume we can do it pretty reasonably, but it would be good to get bids on it.
Okay, does anybody concur with that? Oh, silence in the room. I'm used to that. Okay, I don't have a problem with a quick, in fact, staff had looked at this once before and we decided against it, if I remember correctly. But maybe we can just dust off that report and bring it back, especially if we're bringing on a new software that we would that would only be the way to activate. Okay, you had something else?
Yep, one more thing. And then I think we already talked about the staff training, both our board and staff eating conferences or travel plans that we have. And I know I've got a agenda item. I'm sorry, I don't have a date on this, but it was from last year. And again, because of COVID, there were a lot of meetings that weren't identified. And I'm wondering, can we table this to Friday? Because I actually am interested in proposing to the board attendance at Leadership Monterey County as one of the things that I would attend and do.
This is a continuation in closed session. Does that mess us up at all if we bring a open discussion item into this? Are we gonna have enough time to do both the open and closed
You
session?
would need to continue an open session item to that date.
Okay, I mean, if it's a big deal, I believe I had asked for this in December, but maybe I didn't articulate it, and if there's another way for me to go about it, I'm happy to do that too, for me to articulate.
I know staff was going to get the list of schools to us so we can discuss it. Those are done on an informal basis. Still looking for some direction here. This isn't really an agendized item that we have right now to continue, right?
No, it wasn't. And I brought that up.
Wants to attend something on behalf of the airport. The board
Would take a vote on that, but that vote has to be done in open session. And what we're doing on Friday is a closed session item without an open session component, correct? Or help me out here, I'm new at this job.
So I think if she's requesting to attend something on behalf of the board, then I think if it hasn't already been requested, send an email to staff. We'll put it on the agenda for the next regularly scheduled board meeting, and the board can make a decision.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else?
One more thing, and I know I said 3. I would like an update to the harassment and discrimination policies for the airport, to have a review of that as well.
Yeah, there was something we were gonna do on that, right?
Yes, I'm working on this.
And that's in conjunction with the human resources too, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that will be a item of, it's being worked on. Okay,
I have a question on that subject.
yeah, go ahead.
You're right, what, that I.
No, we're getting out here early, so
All
go ahead.
Is anybody, since we've had some change of personnel, anybody monitoring us as directors on schedule for harassment training and
Yes.
no conflict, but you know, all that stuff?
Yes.
Is somebody doing that, or are you doing it?
So I can tell you the last time that you all did it with me, I believe Amanda keeps tabs on that, but so it's incumbent upon board members to let Amanda know when you did complete the training, if you've done it since the last time we did it. Last time we did it was here in this room, April of 2020.
I think you did it at a spot in April of 2018, and then I think because of the pandemic, they did it in 2020. You guys all did it online.
Online.
Yeah.
Okay, so I lose track of all the things that we're supposed to do. One of them is about taking bribes, and the other one is harassment. Are there other ones that we are obligated?
Those are the 2 big ones.
Those are the 2 big ones. And you're keeping track of me taking a bribe?
April 2022, we have to have the training. Okay, all right.
And it's tracked online too. It's on our website. Every board member, when they last had training.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
That what?
Ethics.
Ethics?
The ethics, as you put it, the bribe one.
Go ahead.
Director Sable had asked for finance to look at, but that's gonna then come to the full board for just a business license update.
Okay.
On where it is. So that was your request, I think, to
Yeah.
finance. And it was too early, Bill, to have it like right now, because the letters just went out. So we agreed in finance, we kick it another month.
Sure.
But anyway, we'll put it for future agenda. And then the marketing, or those, not marketing. Yeah, marketing strategic plan. Maybe we could ask Air Service Delivery to look at that and then put that on an agenda just to see kind of where we are with spending the dollars and what's been spent and what we're doing.
Yeah, if you want to recap of marketing activity from the budget this year, absolutely.
yeah, with not just, this is the line and this is what was spent, but more like this much went for radio, this much went for TV, this much went, that sort of thing. I think that might help all of us. And then on the CARES Act, on the 3 grants that we get, Chris and Tim, if we could just maybe have a cover page that says, this is the amount, the graph is one thing, but that this is the amount that's left in each one of these on a piece of paper. Well, not really. We say what's been spent so far, it's not real, I think we're all asking, just say, do you have 8.2 million and where is it in what 3 things? Yeah, balance left, balance remaining in the 3 grants. Just as a cover on the, whatever else you give us, and then, because that's the question I hear every month. And then I think because of where we are with the, with our attorneys, that we're not gonna be ready the first part of February for our meeting, because we need to get into getting the, whatever we're gonna do in. So Scott, when would be a good time?
Well, I need to have that conversation with consultants first.
Because I thought I heard Tony say that we would be, that they would, you all would try to have something to us by our February 16th board meeting.
Yes.
So if we were to go after that date, but those were the dates that we couldn't get anybody, the 17th, 18th, 19th, and all of that, which probably is gonna put us in March. So I'm just trying to keep it on everybody's radar that we're talking about it. And then could we just have an update on parking? Because I keep getting complaints about the thing is broken out in front in the short term. And also that people couldn't get out in long term. And then you have to call the Delray Oaks police. And if they're busy, you can sit there a good 20, 30 minutes waiting to get out, which is not very acceptable when you're coming in on a late flight. So maybe could we have an update about how that's working, not having a person?
Yeah, we can do whatever you like, but I can tell you the problem is not staffing, it's equipment.
Yeah, no, I
We
get
have
it.
the equipment sitting in the room, it's getting briefed to get it installed. That's the equipment's here, it's just getting it installed. And probably the hub, and the hub has not yet.
Okay, well, I think it's a matter of where we're getting complaints.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's a card reader that has rejected cards and wouldn't do it, but it's an issue. I got locked out because the staff made a little mistake when they updated my badge and it didn't work. And I had to sit there for 20 minutes and wait for the police. I was okay with it. My roommate wasn't. So I can't imagine. I think that's what I had. I tried to capture what we were talking
Okay.
about.
Thank you. Well, that's quite the list from all of us. I have nothing to add. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Just- Do we have staff time for all of these items? I counted 9 items.
What's that?
Is it fair to ask staff to handle this all in the next month, or I counted 9 items,
I don't think it has to be handled in the next month, but
next 3?
we'll put some. We will look at that, yeah, because we can't put that all on one agenda.
Yeah.
And some of it, quite frankly, I don't think requires a presentation. It's just, but we will work on those things. Okay, I have a first and second. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we will be re-adjourned on Friday at 9 a.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night, Lisa.
Yes.